Just keep on having fun. Play on, girl. Just keep on having fun. You bought every day, and you leave your work undone. Yes, I love my baby. Oh, yes, I really do. Well, I love and let me pour some too.
City Council meeting held today on July 28th, 2022. Councilwoman Hurtak, you have the invocation today. Would everyone please rise and remain standing after the invocation for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Christy Kohler here. She's the Donor Relations Manager at SPCA Tampa Bay, the only nonprofit animal welfare agency that runs a for-all animal shelter and public veterinary hospital in the Tampa Bay area. Christy tells the uplifting stories of animals healing and finding homes at their Largo shelter, making sure donors see how they are changing lives with their support. As a for-all shelter, SPCA Tampa Bay does not turn away any animal, from companion animals looking for rehoming or farm animals found as strays to injured and orphaned wildlife.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for having us this morning. Let us bow our heads. Eternal Spirit, we come together this morning in service to our community. Let us begin with gratitude for all that brings us joy, family, friends, pets, and creatures of all kinds. Remembering that we are stewards of all living things, guide us to serve with compassion rather than judgment, to help those in need with kindness, and to stand for those who cannot stand alone. Help us to always remember that we must speak for the voiceless and care for the broken. Remind us that it is in our differences that we are stronger, and help us build bridges across all that divides us. Finally, help us to learn from the animals who share our homes, to find joy in our simple blessings, to be present in each moment, and to love without limits. Hear our humble prayer, and please guide us in our service. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Roll call.
Carlson.
Here.
Vieira. Maniscalco.
Here.
Hurtak.
Here.
Goods.
Here.
Miranda.
Here.
Citro.
Here.
Lower Physical Quorum.
Thank you very much. Mr. Massey.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. This is the July 28, 2022 meeting of the City of Tampa City Council held in City Council chambers in the third floor of Old City Hall, 315 East Kennedy Boulevard here in Tampa, Florida. The public is able to attend this meeting in person or view it via cable television or Spectrum Channel 640 or Frontier Channel 15 or via the internet at www.tampa.gov/livestream. The public is also able to participate in this meeting during public comment for a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker, either here in person in City Council chambers or virtually by way of communication media technology or CMT. However, the use of CMT does require pre-registration with the City Clerk's office. Directions for pre-registration are included in the notice of the meeting and on the agenda. Members of the public may also participate in quasi-judicial matters remotely via CMT, but cell phones and smartphones are not compatible as they will not allow your camera when connected. You must have access to a CMT device such as a tablet or computer equipped with a camera and a microphone that will enable you to be seen and heard by City Council and all other participants in a quasi-judicial matter. Also, just because we have such a large crowd, if you can make sure that your cell phones are on silent, if you keep the chatter down, we'd appreciate it. Can I please have a motion waiving City Council standard rules of procedure to allow public comment by CMT?
We have a motion made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Massey. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot of changes to our agenda today. We're going to briefly run through those at this time, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. Today we have some walk-ons, which we will take. Senator Cruz is going to be first, not right now, though Ms. Senator Cruz, sorry. We have walk-on items. The first walk-on item, number file E 2022-48, Rebecca Johns is going to go number 2 after that. And then Miss Austin is going to come on, and we're going to be talking about our contract negotiations. Is that fine with you, Miss Austin? Thank you very much. Let's go to the staff agenda. And that will be, I'm sorry, Miss Austin will be at administrative update with those.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
we have State Representative Diana Hart here. She wanted to address the council, so we can fit her in. She has to get on a plane by like 10:30, so she has to drive out, so we can make an accommodation for her, sir.
And when would you like to put that?
We can put that before the public comment. It should be able time to make it over where she has to go.
Yes, sir. Motion made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Let's go to the consent agenda items. Number 4, yes, we're going to hear that one. Number 5, yes, because Brad Baird is going to be also asking for a few things. Number 6, do I hear a yes to keep Chief O'Connor here for that?
Councilman Vieira made that.
Then let's go ahead, he's not here, so let's go ahead and,
I am.
oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Vieira.
And I'm sorry. What was that?
That was
The
for Chief O'Connor to appear, that was your motion?
I'm sorry.
Monetary support for victims of crime,
Oh yeah.
okay.
Sure.
Well-
And it wasn't this. And if I may, it wasn't necessarily the chief. Just a representative from TPD is fine. Whoever.
Okay, thank you. Administrative update number 7.
Yes.
That was also your
Yes.
motion, yes, we're gonna keep that one? Thank you, Councilman Miranda or Councilman Goose, whichever. Number 8,
Yes.
Yes.
number 9,
Yes.
10,
Yes, I want to hear how we're gonna do that. That'd be fine.
11,
Yes.
thank you, and 12,
Yes.
13,
Yes.
Yes.
14,
I would say we'd have to continue that item. Let's continue it to August 25th is the next city council session. That's not next week, under staff reports.
a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one order. We keep continuing it, and we're gonna continue it again, so are we actually gonna discuss the issue, or how are we gonna deal with that issue? That's
That
my
was
concern.
under our city council attorney, Martin Shelby. Martin Shelby has taken the day off today. That is going to have to be discussed with him since he was the lead on that when he returns.
Okay.
Number 16,
We have to discuss that.
Yeah, but I don't know when he's gonna
We're
return,
running out of
so.
time, and this keeps
Right.
getting bounced. So we don't need a facilitator, we don't need Marty, we just need to have a discussion among ourselves and then direct legal to draft language that would go on the ballot.
Let's continue 13 with 14 to August 25th, so it's together. I apologize.
okay, August 25th, motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak, all in favor?
Aye.
In connection with item number 15, that is Mr. Shelby's item as well. I could circulate to all of you the current resolution that creates that committee, so you all can look at it, and we can have, if you wanted a discussion next week, you do have a regular meeting next week.
Yeah.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco, all in favor?
Mr. Chair, I suggest on 16 that we wait until that item, and then or we could even put it at the end of the day, and if it looks like we are running out of time, we can put it another time, but we're not gonna have time to wait for Marty's advice. We're just gonna have to come up with a list of things we'd like legal to draft.
Yes, I think we should at least leave it on and let's talk about it.
All right.
August 23rd deadline, I think, for the ballot.
Yes.
Well, we can always have it on a city election.
We can always have it on a city
I
election.
think
But-
that
but
we're
we need
running
to
out
talk
of
about it
time for
today.
the November, but I
Yes.
think it would be, the workshop and the discussions would be, you could have it so that any changes to the charter that you would like to propose, you could place on the spring ballot, the city election ballot.
And I'd still like to hit the November ballot. We still have time. On number 13, I don't think that relies on Marty. The city staff has said that they have insurance for us, but obviously they don't, and so we need to find a replacement. And I don't know what mechanism we need to find a replacement, but, leaving it up to the discretion of a political appointee obviously doesn't work. They're leaving us out to hang. So we need to figure out, I would suggest 13, we discuss when we get to 13, and we decide.
We
what
just
our
made
next
the
step-
motion. Would you like to rescind your motion, Councilman Maniscalco?
If you're ready to talk about it today, I'll rescind the motion.
Yeah, I'll rescind my second.
We will leave 13 on the agenda.
Thank you.
Does that clear up staff reports?
Yep.
All right.
Well, I think we have some things from consent that are gonna come up to staff.
Mr. Chair, I have,
Yeah, I want item number 43.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Hang on one second, Councilman Carlson.
mine are the same.
Oh, okay, they've already been pulled.
Yes.
Then
So
great.
those things are fine. Councilman Miranda.
Item 70, I'm not pulling it, just when it comes to Mr. Carlson doing this. Yes, sir. That's the ferry service. I've had the pleasure of seeing it where it was operating on before here, and as you well know, I don't support that. I just want to tell you ahead. But I'm not going to pull it, ask you to pull it or anything else.
And on 70, there is a substitute for that. It needs to be discussed anyways. Councilman Carlson?
I think we have a lot of deep issues today with lots of background information. Some of them the public has not been given enough notice to review, and we could talk about those later. But number 43 and 44 are very significant issues. The public is very much against these. We can spend a long time talking about these today, but there was an important meeting that was supposed to happen on Friday where the water department was supposed to meet constituents. I think it was Friends of the River and Sierra Club. That meeting was canceled, and even Sierra Club is in the dark right now, and they're going to give feedback maybe in public comment, but they have not had a chance to fully study this. And so I would like to make a motion to move to continue 43 and 44 until September 15th.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Roll call vote.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes,
motion carried unanimously.
thank you.
Move to approve the agenda.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr.
Motion
Chair,
passes
if I may.
unanimously.
Oh,
Councilman Vera, did you vote?
yes, I did.
Thank you. And a silent vote.
I think
counts as a
Councilman
yes.
Vieira is trying to speak.
We're having a problem with his audio.
It's tough to hear you, Councilman Vieira.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can hear you, but barely. IT, can you
I'm
raise the
sorry.
volume? Go ahead, Councilman.
Okay, and I voted on that. I voted yes. Thank you. If everyone can hear me, just for the public, and I released a memo to council. I believe you got. I tested positive for COVID, so that's why I'm hearing right now. I believe we're going to go to ceremonial and public comment. I have some things I have to do for my health right now, so I'll be back either during the middle of public comment or after. I just want to be here for most of the voting items. So just for the public's information, but if I'm not on, it's because I'm taking care of something. So just FYI. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Vieira. Senator Cruz.
Hi, Rebecca Johns, Assistant City Attorney. This is the first walk-on resolution. This is where you wanted to take it?
Yes,
Is that correct?
ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So the state legislature earlier this year has, pursuant to their authority, designated a portion of Columbus, Maximino Capdevilla Road as an honorary designation. So pursuant to Florida statute, the local government must adopt a resolution supporting that, and that directs DOT to erect markers on Columbus Avenue. So the Honorable Senator Jana Cruz is here to present and to explain a little more. Thank you.
And also, but as Senator Cruz comes up, since this is an item that you are voting on, any other member of the public that wishes to comment on the resolution should be allowed to comment before you all vote. So,
Good morning, members, and most of you are friends that I've known for a long time. Councilman Hurtak, welcome. I haven't had the honor of meeting you yet. I also see lots of first responders here, and I feel very safe in the chambers right now. If they're here for any kind of salary increase, you have my permission. I'm happy to amend anything that would help them, so thank you.
Can you work it into your budget this year?
Exactly, exactly. I'm here to honor some friends, and most of us that have been here for several generations know families that came over and didn't speak any English and went to work. And the Capdevilla family, they immigrated from Cuba to the United States in 1962 on the Freedom Flight to Miami. They were fleeing Cuba, like so many others, for a better life for their boys after Fidel Castro and communism took over. Even though they did not speak English and had no ties in Tampa, Maximino and Coralilla Capdevilla knew that if they worked hard, they could achieve that great American dream. They decided to settle in Tampa along with their 4 boys, George, actually Jorge, but we called him George, Albert, and Louis, and Maxie Jr. After years of working and saving their money, Maximino and Coralilla decided to open their own business and bought their first storefront, La Teresita Grocery. And I will tell you that it was a joy on Saturday mornings as a very young child to go to the Teresita for our, go back to the butcher shop. All these guys, all these boys worked Saturdays. There was nothing else that they did but work. There was no sports, anything. They were responsible for supporting their families. So if you went back to the meat department in the back of the store, these 4 guys were back there, and it was an absolute joy to buy your meat because they're kidding with each other, they're kidding with every woman that comes in, and they're laughing, and it was just such a good and positive experience. These people worked very hard and never lost their sense of humor and their sense of community. And this family and the boys and the faith in God went on to work together to make the American dream a reality. So many other small businesses, and the success came with a big price. They worked, as I said before, from 7 in the morning to 11 at night, 365 days a year, year in and year out. But the fruits of the Capdevilla's labor grew, and the small grocery store expanded to become a supermarket with fish and the meat market and small coffee and sandwich shop with a large customer base. And then soon the restaurant seating was not large enough to meet the customer demand, and the family made the decision to buy the property across the street from the supermarket, and it was there that a small restaurant and coffee shop, and we have all sat at that counter in the morning and had a wonderful cup of café con leche and visited with many friends. But it is a West Tampa landmark, and let me back up and say something about West Tampa. It has always been, it will always be West Tampa. It is not Midtown.
Nope.
It is West Tampa. That is all.
What Tampa?
So La Teresita now serves thousands weekly and has been honored to host and serve presidents of the United States, governors, senators, mayors, city workers, and people from all cultures and all walks of life. And this family's success has continued to serve this community and the people from all over the world with great food and an even better atmosphere. The Capdevillas are the perfect example, again, of the American opportunity that you can flee the evils of communism. You can come to a foreign land with nothing and create a blossoming business and enjoy freedom and democracy. It is for the Caldevillas and so many other hardworking immigrant families like theirs that I ask your favorable support for the resolution designating a portion of Columbus Drive as Maximo Capdevilla Road. And that is all, Councilman. I would like to introduce the family and let them say, with the permission of the council, let them make comments.
Yes.
Yes, it's a privilege to be here. Know many of you for many years, and we thank you for your service to our community. And it's an honor to be able to represent my dad at this hour. Dad has been 11 years gone, but the legacy continues now into the third generation. So we thank you for your support.
We thank you for the opportunity for being here. We appreciate the honor that you all place on my dad and his diligence and hard work. My dad and my mom, so we're very grateful and honored and humbled. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Carlson.
Thank you for representing the American dream and reminding us all of the key values that we all need to work toward and protect. And thank you for providing one of the most important places to have the important discussions of Tampa. All the important business goes on there, so thank you.
Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you, Senator Cruz, for spearheading this and honoring a wonderful family. I know your father's photo hangs up there in the restaurant because I see it all the time. I've been there all the time. I've been there going for years to this West Tampa landmark. There was a woman that took care of my sister and I as we grew up right around the corner. So my entire childhood, every day was passing by the original Teresita restaurant, and I remember watching the new one being constructed. And although I did not meet your parents, my mother knew them, my grandparents knew them. They embody the American dream, and they always say the same thing, how hard they worked in raising you and your brothers, all of you, and what a wonderful family you are. Thank you for your contributions to West Tampa. You are a beloved family. Congratulations in honoring your father and your family.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
I want to echo the other councilman in saying congratulations and thank you. Your restaurant has been a landmark. When I was a small child, I do remember going. And when I moved back to Tampa, it was one of the first places I went. It's an iconic spot. And so actually I have my family is from Miami, and most of them have left. So when they come visit me in Tampa, that is where I take them because it reminds them of the great food that they can't get anywhere outside of Tampa and Miami. So thank you so much for all you've done, and we really appreciate and hope that it stays a landmark for many generations to come.
Thank you.
Councilman Goods.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you and your family for the work you've done in our community, for the service you've given to organizations when they need donations and food. And I can assure you that my favorite dish over there is that liver and onions. So that's where I go when I want some liver and onions, because most people don't sell that or don't like that, but I'm glad we have a place that I can go eat that. So thank you and congratulations today.
Councilman Miranda.
I don't know if I can follow the liver thing, but I'll try. You either eat it or run away from it, one of the two. But I said thank you very much, your family. I've known your father and your mother way back. They lived a block from where I live, and they were wonderful neighbors, and they were wonderful people. And I know that at times, especially when the grocery store was there, sometimes somebody was a little short, and they just marked it down in the book, and a couple of days later they came and caught up. So it's a wonderful thing that to see that people that come to this country can do so well. And they did it for one reason only, because they wanted to. They sacrificed their youth and their middle age to have a family and create a business that was iconic in the city of Tampa. And when you look at Capdevillas and you look at Vizcaya, the only difference is about 260 miles. Because you have the same elemento, the same crowd. It's an icon, and I want to thank you and the family for continuing what you do, both brothers. God bless you and your family.
Thank you.
You know, going to La Teresita, the food is great. I go there for the food. I stay for the conversation. Usually, there's more politics there than there is in this chamber. And the person who wins the conversation is the person who speaks the loudest. Gentlemen, thank you. Thank your family. And finally, we can have a portion of Columbus no longer called Boliche Boulevard.
How about that?
Thank you very much. Is there anyone in this chamber that would like to speak to this today?
Depend. If,
Please come up to the podium.
I would like to speak to the aspect of honoring these men and their family. I don't know any of them at all. And the way they are addressed.
Can I have your name, please, sir, for the record?
Malik Lukman Abdullah. The way they are addressed and given this honor here, I would like for the agenda of Black America to be given the same accord.
Gentlemen, again, thank you for everything you've done in West Tampa, Guatampa. Thank you for your family, and enjoy this honor.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
We also want to thank Senator Cruz for
Yes.
supporting us. Thank you so much.
Members, I would like to let you know that the next step is FDOT and preparation of the sign and the sign ceremony. And myself, along with the Capdevilla family, would like to invite you to join us for the unveiling of the sign and probably lunch afterward, right?
Absolutely.
So please join us. Also, I wanted to address the comment that was made and let everyone know that a few years ago, I did do a road naming for the publisher of the Florida Sentinel, Mr. Andrews. So that sign is already up in East Tampa, and we celebrated that several years ago. So thank you very much.
A motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
God
so much.
bless.
Thank you. God bless.
Oh, yes. Representative Hart.
Good morning, Council. Thank you very much for allowing me to go ahead and speak. I do have a trip. As you all know, legislators stay busy all the time, even during an election period. And I'm already elected, so I'm on the ground really running. So thank you very much. I just want to...
Representative.
Yes, sir.
We all know who you are, but for the record, can you please state your name?
Representative Diane Hart.
Thank
You all no longer give addresses?
That's good.
Okay, we used to have to give an address too, so it's been a long time, right? But I just want to make sure that the listening audience and the people here in the chamber understand that I'm not here to try and preempt anything that our local government is doing. I just want to ensure that you all understand that I understand that there is a housing crisis. My hope would be that we would have called for a crisis out of Tallahassee, being that that has not happened. Because if that were to happen, then my attorney general could step in and stop some of the price gouging that's going on right here in our city. And you all understand that probably as well as anybody. But that has not happened. So I personally, as a citizen who live here in the city, not as a representative, but just as an individual, I'm looking forward to you all moving something. I don't know what it is. I watched you all last week. I know that you talked about the possibility of putting something on the ballot that would help with rent stabilization. I don't know how you get there. I'm not going to try and tell you how to get there. But I am asking you all, please, we must consider that every single day people are going homeless. I run an organization, East Tampa Business and Civic Association, which is a housing organization. My phone calls have tripled for the number of people who are going homeless due to these rent increases and the inability to find somewhere decent to live. Many of you all have worked with us trying to figure out how we better some of these apartment complexes we have in our city. It goes back to Senator Cruz and I to go back to Tallahassee to impress upon them how important it is to allow you all here on the local level, where you are right next to the people, to be able to make some decisions that we currently have the opportunity to make, and obviously we're not getting it done. But I also want to say to you all, I will go back to Tallahassee and fight as hard as I can to increase the funding for the Sadowski Housing Trust Fund. I know those dollars are important to this city, and any other dollars that we can get. You all know we put forth money for our first, primary police, teachers, those kind of people with those jobs. But we know that ordinary people who are now homeless with no jobs since COVID still needs that same level of help. I don't know how you offer it, but I am asking you as a citizen, not as a representative, to let's figure out how we get something done for the people of our community. They're suffering. They really are suffering. And I just want to say to you all, I thank you for allowing me to come before you. I will do everything I can. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I will, as the representative, do whatever I can to carry forth anything that you all think we can do for you in Tallahassee. So I thank you for this opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you. Councilman Carlson.
I'm happy to meet with you offline individually, but just so you know, over the last 3 years, we've been pushing really hard to put in lots of different efforts, and I'm sure my colleagues can tell you as well. We had 8 years of a mayor who tore down public housing and tore down affordable housing instead of incentivizing it, and so we have more than 8 years to catch up, and before that, we had the Great Recession. So we've been trying to reverse those policies the last 3 years. To my recollection, we did declare a housing state of emergency. What we did not do is declare a crisis, but we did not declare a housing state of emergency because state law specifically defines what that is, and we're told by legal that we have to do a study to do that. But worse, there's a law from 30, 40 years ago that essentially prohibits us from having a rent stabilization. It limits us to a referendum and then to 12 months. And Economics 101 to me says that would be devastating for people who are already about to get kicked out of their homes. You know what landlords are going to do if they know that a 12-month moratorium is coming up. What they're going to do is double or triple the rates even higher, and more people are going to get kicked out. The thing that I would love to do, and I'm sure City Council probably would unanimously support, is help you to change that law that preempts us. Because if we could change that preemption, then we could do what all the people in red shirts want us to do. I know that you would be in favor of that, and we might not have the votes in the legislature, but I think what I would like to do is all of us redirect our efforts with your advice and leadership to change this law in Tallahassee to allow us to do what the people want. Thank you.
Councilman Goods.
I respect my colleagues and their comments, but I have to disagree a little bit. There are some things we can do. I told the community that I would research and bring back some information. I've got some information today as it relates to housing crisis and this emergency. There are some things we can do. We never can say what we can't do. So a little bit later, I'm going to talk about that and look at maybe introducing something, because there are some things we could do. It doesn't take 18 months. It doesn't take all this big study. There's a lot of things that can be put in place by local municipalities, but you have to have the will and the courage just to do it. Just to do it. People always talk about legal fights. Well, hell, I've been sued. People they sue us every day. You have attorneys to fight those lawsuits. So to me, I look at how we're going to be able to help the people. They elect us to do a job. They don't care about all these other issues. They want us to be able to fight, and whatever's turned down is turned down. But we have a job to do, and I'm going to do my job. So I'm going to talk about something later on in reference to the emergency crisis.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand what's been said before. I never forget one doctor told me, "Aren't you afraid of falling?" I said, "No, ma'am, I'm not. I'm afraid of landing." And these are the problems that I see now. When you go back and do an analytical study of what was torn down, let's face it, they were not in good condition. They were not in good condition, publicly and privately. And the problem is that once you tear down, by the time you start to build up, it takes 2 and 3 years, sometimes 4 years, because all the loopholes you have to go through. And these things are coming aboard. Certainly, Tampa Housing has done their part. The developers have done their part. This city and other governments have done their part. But it takes time. And even then, because of the economy that we have today, those that are either rising or those that are being left out, that's the problem. you have a problem in itself there. So when you have those items, and you have an inflationary rate, and you have something that, if this cup of coffee sold for a dime 8 years ago, and now it's $1, what causes the individuals that buy that complex? If you buy it at 8 or 10 million, and you have it for 30 years, you depreciate it all the way down, and you sell it for 40 million, what's gonna happen to the person who bought it? And I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying that's the fact that we're dealing with. Those are the problems that we have. Something that was worth 8 or 10, now it's worth 40. And between that is your rent increase, all the way around. And I'm not saying they're right, I'm saying that's one of the factors that I have to consider when I look at these things. And it's just time heal wounds, but wounds don't heal time. And it's just a situation that we're in. We're trying to help as much as we can. And even if we start giving out funds somewhere to perpetuate the rent increase, then the question you got to ask yourself is this: for what period of time are those funds going to last? Are they going to last forever? Even the federal government that can borrow money and be in debt, no city government can work in the red. It's against the law. So you have to have a budget to meet your demands, and that's what it's all about. And I'm not here to talk or lecture anyone. I don't do those things. But what I'm saying is reality is reality. You have to face up yourself, look at yourself in the mirror in the morning, and just be truthful with what you have in front of you. And you have to go in that fashion of way. That's the way I was brought up. So you may call me old-fashioned, you may call me whatever you want, and I take that, you know what, as an honor, because you at least recognize me. Thank you so very much, Sam, for what you're doing in Tallahassee. God bless you. And I know the odds there are against you because of the numbers don't match. Thank you.
Councilman Hurtak.
I echo what Councilman Carlson said. I'm happy to work with you in any regard. And I believe that one of the things that we can do now, and Councilman Miranda alluded to it, and I somewhat disagree. I feel like right now with the budget we have, we don't. We historically took away housing. We didn't have a replacement for that housing, and so we are trying everything we can to actually build that housing back. But in the meantime, what do? We have an RMAP program that's trying to help people bridge those gaps. And so what I want to see is us to use the money that we have gained through these historic property tax increases to increase money for that program. So until we have more housing, we need to keep people in the housing that they have. So I want to see a lot more money in the budget for that. That it's not an answer, and certainly we can't do it forever. But for another year or two, that's what we have to do, and we have the money to do that because it's the same crisis. You're right, that everyone else is facing. We're voting on giving our city employees today, we're voting on their contracts. And these are historically high contracts because of inflation and because of what everyone has gone through. And we want to keep our employees and give them what we can, but we also have the citizens, and how can we help them? We can help them by giving this money that we have gained, that we didn't have before, to help keep people in the housing. I don't disagree, we need a ton more housing, but in the meantime, that is the very least we can do to help keep people where they are. I believe that we can help an absolute large number of folks. We have a housing hotline that folks can call to get on the wait list, but we also need to get through that wait list. We need to make sure the applications are correct. If you haven't been served yet, we need you to call in and figure out what's missing from your application. So that's where we could probably work together with your office to try to get those applications complete so that we can serve the population. I know we've used half of the money that we've allocated. I know we have quite a bit of money left. So I would, that is immediately where we can help.
Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Representative Hart, for being here. Last weekend, I bumped into a few people that are very familiar with Tallahassee, and the discussion of affordable housing came up, and one said, you know, Tallahassee is not going to let you fix this, but you have to use all the tools in your toolbox to do what you can to move the needle and help the people in this emergency that we have. So to Councilman Carlson's point, I want to partner with you. We want to partner with you because we believe in you. We know you're a fighter to help move the needle and make change in Tallahassee that will benefit all Floridians, specifically here in the city of Tampa in Hillsborough County. Because if you look at the situation, if this were a menu, we're at the appetizer. We're just getting started. We're at the tip of the iceberg, and if we don't use all the tools in our toolbox within the limits of the law, within the limits of our jurisdiction, because I know we can't do everything, preemption and whatnot, we haven't gotten to the main course. And we're going to have a lot of good people, because they're good, hardworking people on the street that are just trying to stay in their homes. I mean, we understand inflation, we understand the cost of rent, but we also have to understand compassion, and that we need to, as elected officials, do what we can within our power, in our purview, to help those people in need. So thank you very much for your leadership. We believe with you, we stand with you, and we know that your voice is heard in Tallahassee, and we're standing behind you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Representative Hart, thank you for being here today. Thank you for bringing us your opinion. We're hoping that you will be the leader in Tallahassee. We need more people like you in Tallahassee to lift the restrictions that we have on us. Because without your help, things like the Sadowski Fund will be continued to be drained for no good reason at all. Thank you again for your leadership. We need your help. Safe travels, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you this morning. And I look forward to working with each of you in whatever way we can. If you have ideas for legislation, please let me know. I mean, we sit there, but we're not the magic brain that come up with all these pieces of legislation. It comes from people just like yourself and people who are sitting here in this audience. That's how we get bill language. We have people who that's their job, just to figure it out. So if you all have ideas, I'm always open to listen and to carry anything that I can. I just ask that as you all consider this, please do use all of your tools in your toolbox. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Johns.
We already heard mine.
Oh, okay.
Unless you want to take the next walk-on.
No, we're gonna go to ceremonials now.
Thank you.
I had.
Mine was the roadway designation.
Right, okay, thank you very much. Councilman Carlson.
I was looking in the audience trying to find Butch Delgado, and I couldn't find him. I kept looking and looking and looking, and that's because he's not wearing a uniform. And I should say, it's only a few times a year that we, City Council, get a chance to thank the men and women, a few men and women of the police department. And we see in the media sometimes exceptional cases, but we've got a very large number of hardworking men and women who especially worked hard in the last few years. And I want to thank them. I'm sure all my colleagues would thank them. Everyone in the administration would thank them for what they've done. And we wish we could give a plaque like this to all the people who are protecting us every day. But today, I will, come on up. I will, on behalf of council, thank Butch Delgado, Ruben Butch Delgado. I'll just read this quickly. It is Tampa City Council's honor to commend Ruben Butch Delgado on the occasion of your retirement after 24 years of dedication to the Tampa Police Department. During your nearly quarter century of service, you served in all 3 districts, support services, and criminal investigation, where you played a crucial role in capturing the Seminole Heights killer and serial killer in 2017, took the lead in public safety planning for Super Bowl 55 in 2021, finally serving your hometown as interim chief, where you spearheaded the effort to protect the civil rights and right to a safe place to live of all Tempeños by working with City Council to restructure the crime-free housing program. Protecting and serving is a higher calling. You answer to make your hometown a better place. The city is in your debt. We wish you well in your next chapter. Is your wife here? Where's she? Oh, come on up. We have been doing these on presentation days, but because of scheduling, especially to have his wife here, who I've never met in person, I've only met you online. Great to see you. Her best friend is someone I went to high school with, so small world. Anyway, I wanted to, on behalf of City Council, to say thank you. And would you all like to say something, or want him to say something first? Go. Butch, you want to say something?
So I'll say a few words. I'll keep it quick. You guys got a busy agenda. Thank you. Appreciate it. Real fast, and we had the ceremony a few weeks back, and I'm honored by being recognized by council. Thank you. It means a lot, but more importantly, it gives me an opportunity to thank you all publicly, both collectively as a group and as a council and individually, for everything you've done for me over the years, especially over the last few years. You know, we didn't always agree on topics. We didn't always have the same solutions, but I think at the end we both dealt with it with respect. Everybody was very respectful for me, gave me some good advice offline, and we were always able to go do whatever was best for the city at the time. So I thank you all for that. That sometimes there's a lot of cities that doesn't work with police departments. So the fact that this agency is able to have that relationship with council, it means a lot. And that's a tribute to the 1,000 men and women that are working at that agency. You know, I didn't get any of these achievements. None of this stuff in this accommodation happens without the rest of the group behind me. So it's a great agency. You guys, it was a good ride. 24 years was a good ride. So, and I'm not done in Tampa. I'm still working here locally. I'm not done serving. The place I'm at now is they've given back like $7 million to the city over the last few years. So I will be around. You'll see my face around. I still got a little bit more back to give to the city. So I want to thank you all. I know it's busy. I'll stop talking here in a second. But I just, you know, 24 years, you don't do it by yourself. Obviously, like I said, with the men and women, but with my family, with Grace and the kids. Many nights that I wasn't there. I was working during Seminole Heights. It was 51 days I wasn't home, and they were at home wondering what was going on. So, again, thank you all publicly for everything you do. And again, I appreciate this. Thanks so much.
Councilman Miranda.
Mr. Carlson, why don't you introduce the wife and the daughter?
Because I failed to do it.
And I'm from West Ham. I'm never going to insult you.
I got nervous when they were talking about taking stuff from Teresita and not paying for it, because I think I still have a few things.
At your age, I really like your new hairpiece.
What's that?
At your age, I really like your new hairpiece.
I'm sorry, I apologize. This is my wife, Grace, my daughter, Kendall, and my son, Chase, was here, but he had to get to work, so he left. So, sorry about that.
I'd like one thing, Mr. Chairman, your nickname. How did you get your, you know, in the Hispanic community, everybody has a nickname. That's right. Or used to, I don't know about now. So if it's not too...
No, I'll tell you, it's you probably know the story. It was when my father was growing up.
I know that. I said it a long time ago.
When my father was growing up, for whatever reason, and he couldn't give me a good explanation, was he never called his dad. He called him Butch, for whatever. So when my mom was pregnant, before sonograms and everything else, my grandfather would always say, "That's little Butch," not knowing if it was a girl or boy coming out. So thank God it was a boy coming out. Anyway, it was me. That's how I got it since the day I was born. And anybody from West Tampa who knows me doesn't even know my name is Ruben.
And I appreciate, I know at West Tampa you had 16 one-hitters as a pitcher.
That's
that
right.
sounds great. However, it was the other way around. The first 16 guys got a hit.
That's right. That's right. Very true.
Well, thank you very much for your service. We really admire that, and possibly one day you'll be back in blue. You're wearing gray now, so you're getting there already.
I'm getting gray.
Councilman Goods.
You say you from West Tampa,
I haven't
right?
roasted him yet.
You say you from
go
West
on.
Tampa, right?
Yeah.
What's your nickname?
Mine?
Yeah, your nickname, huh?
Well, when I played ball, it was like,
I
even
did.
at Lijo de
I played ball.
Cubano. Here comes the Cuban kid, his father's a Cuban. That's how they called me. They had a lot of nicknames. And in fact, when I played ball, half the team, I didn't know their real name.
That's right.
But you know, I know how you feeling. You get that last radio transmission. A lot of people don't know how that feels. You know, it's a different feeling when an officer retires and a dispatcher comes on it's your last voices you'll hear from your friends. They come on and say you're done for the remainder, you know? You kind of feel something. But, you know, like I tell people, you know, the police department is it's a different type of beast. You know it, I know it. These guys out here, they know it. But you retired, so you go enjoy yourself, Butch. Just go enjoy yourself, you know, do what you want to do. You know, you already found something else, but, you know, you got some other aspirations, do other things in the city. So go enjoy yourself, man. And the old saying, see you, we'll see you, man.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
I didn't get the pleasure to work with you the way that my other council members did, but as a resident of Seminole Heights, I can speak to that, and I can say thank you so much for the work that the office, that all officers did in Seminole Heights during that time. It was a very scary time, and I know that that having so many officers and having you work so hard to help find the person who committed those crimes and to get them to stop, basically, and to make the community feel safer. We are forever in debt to you and to your family for those 51 days that you weren't home. So thank you so much, and best of everything in your retirement.
Councilman Maniscalco.
Congratulations on your retirement. Maybe you will be back one day, maybe not, but we appreciate you, and I will tell you this, West Tampa loves you. I hear it all the time. Anytime your name comes up, or your family, or whatever, it's always very positive. We hate to see you go, but you know what? Life is short, you're young, and all good things ahead, and I wish you much happiness and the best of luck. Thank you.
I want to add, this shows the influence of the University of Tampa, because he played baseball at University of Tampa. I went to UT. Charlie went to UT, I think.
I was there for a year.
Anybody else? The mayor played basketball at UT. Anybody else? But you look at the leadership of the city of Tampa, and UT's done some remarkable things. But thank you so much. Anybody else?
Yes, if I could, please.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Butch, you and I go back to my days at YCDC, when you were a captain in D3.
That's right.
I knew then that you would go far. The respect you had from YCD members, all the respect you got from the business owners in Ybor City, all the respect you got from the residents in Ybor City. You're a strong leader. I thank you for your time with all of your fellow TPD officers. And I thank you for the time that you led our police force. Butch, you're a friend. More importantly, you're a friend to all of Tampa. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we have our next agenda item, file number E2215. No, that was Ruben. Excuse me, Butch. I'm sorry. Planning Commission. I believe we have, and this is CM 2275-386.
Morning, Council. Jennifer Malone with your Planning Commission. We have a PowerPoint that we sent earlier, so they'll just load it in a moment. Thank you so much. So I'll open us up, Jennifer Malone with the Planning Commission. We're very excited to be before you today presenting on the vision outreach and the survey results. So this is the first step to updating the Tampa Comprehensive Plan. We can't update the Tampa Comprehensive Plan without a vision for the plan. And we wanted to make sure that vision reflected the community and what people are saying and hearing right now. So it was a multi-month process with a survey, and I will turn it over to Stephen and Melissa Dickens to talk about that process and how many folks we reached through that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. So we came before you in February with a preliminary vision for the city in 2045. And since that time, we've gone through the public engagement process, and now Today, item 73 on your consent agenda is the resolution to adopt that vision. In the fall, we'll be bringing before you the water-related sections of the plan. In the spring, the future land use section and the mobility section. The vision is the collective viewpoint for what the future of Tampa will be in the year 2045. It is expressed as a statement that describes that desired future state and represents community participation that can be the foundation for good policy. The vision was drafted based upon recent plans and outreach. Public input was gathered over the last several months, and that has been incorporated to update the vision that's in the current 2040 plan. This will be used going forward to update the goals, objectives, and policies and build that 2045 plan for the future.
And I'll just briefly touch on the outreach to the community. We wanted this to be the community's vision for the future of Tampa. The first step in that was making sure that the information was accessible to the community. We had things like an FAQ, a QR code, surveys in English and Spanish. We wanted to make sure we heard from everyone across the city. We met with neighborhood leaders and stakeholders, community groups, CRAs, groups like the West Shore Alliance, the Downtown Partnership. At the same time, also making sure to be where the people were, to hear from folks who were at parks and libraries and other community events. We also had traditional and social media campaigns, and held a virtual open house. Next slide, please. Oh, I apologize. Thank you. And so here's some metrics on our outreach and who we reached through different mechanisms. You can see there were thousands of folks that saw information about the comprehensive plan, either in person, through social media, through traditional media, and email. And then overall, we got over 700 responses to the survey. Really want to thank everyone who provided the comments on the survey. We got some really good information that will help us as we work to update the individual goals, objectives, and policies. We also look forward to continuing public engagement as we continue to update the plan.
Thanks, Melissa. Jennifer Malone again. I'll just wrap us up with showing some of the examples that we got on our vision survey. We heard a lot of things like Tampa has unique characteristics that differentiates the city from others. So that is something very important that we're going to incorporate in the plan. There was also comments related to housing and a neighborhood identity, as well as resiliency and how we manage the changing climate and where Tampa is situated. So here's just an example of some of those comments. For light reading for anyone, the full survey results are posted on our website at livegrowththrive2045.com. So you are welcome to read these in their entirety. So this was the process that we took to bring forward the vision themes and the vision statement that's before you today. We looked at the survey input and prevalent ideas. We tagged every single vision comment and tried to get at what that vision comment was really saying. So as I said, we reviewed all survey comments. We found those common ideas, and we were able to group those into flooding and resiliency, open space protection, housing, transportation, and accessibility to services. So this is just the first step. Other more specific ideas will be incorporated in forthcoming sections of the plan. So this is really just step one of updating the plan. As Melissa Dickens said, we're not stopping here with outreach either. There will be more to come. So this is what is before you for approval via resolution. As Stephen mentioned on item number 73, I'll just read these so that way they're incorporated into the record. So there's one vision statement and 9 vision themes. So the vision statement is Tampa is an inclusive, sustainable, and resilient city where the natural environment, historic character, and a diversity of cultures enable a vibrant setting for all. Our vision themes start with the title in 2045. All residents have equitable access to a high quality of life and opportunity regardless of background. The natural environment, water resources, clean air, and open space are valued and protected. Land and public resources are used efficiently and infrastructure is reliable and connected. The community and its neighborhoods have unique identities that reflect the rich history and cultural diversity of Tampa. Neighborhoods are complete with a variety of housing types, services, and jobs within a walkable environment. Housing options are available for all income levels and households. Transportation is safe, accessible, connected, and convenient. Resiliency enables the community to recover from and mitigate the effects of climate change, extreme weather events, and other hazards. And a diverse economy provides opportunities for everyone. So that is the vision that's going to inform our Tampa Comprehensive Plan update for approval by resolution on item 73. I'm available for any questions, as well as Melissa Dickens and Stephen Benson.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
I want to say thank you for the work you put into this. I told you earlier that this is what I do in my day job, evaluating and talking to people about how they feel about a particular project. And as we all work through the community, we hear about all of these issues. And so I want to say thank you. I think you've done a great job of capturing all of the issues that Tampa citizens are concerned about and want to make our community a better place. I think this is a great vision plan to get started on that, so thank you. Thanks.
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, and same thing here. I appreciate all that you all do. Before I got on council, part of what I did was public engagement and listening to the public, and it appears that you all went in with a clean slate. You handled this very objectively, thoroughly. You used the tools that you needed to use to get feedback from the public, and I think the statements you made are outstanding, and they reflect everything I hear in the community. So please thank the entire team for working so hard on it, and we look forward to working with you all in the next phases. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you all very much for this hard work.
Thank you.
At this time, we will go to public comment. Anyone that is wishing to make public comments at this time, please approach the podium at the front of the room. No? Good morning.
Good morning, City Council.
Now, of course,
I'm
everyone
Chloe
knows
Coney.
you, but we have to
That's
have your
right.
name
I
for the
want to
record.
make sure, Chloe Coney, the woman that wear many hats. And I'm homegrown from Tampa. And I like to say 50 years of working experience and a lot of jobs, but 30 years in housing and economic development. So I really tell people I am a seasoned practitioner in that field. I want to thank all of you. I have not been to the meetings here, but I want to thank you for working together as you've been voting to help with some of our housing needs. I commend you for that. But as our fearless leader, Robin Lockett, liked to say, this is like a puzzle, and we're going to have to put the pieces all together. City Council, I know every day you hear the cries of the people. I know I do. And my heart breaks when I hear the cries and they're going to be evicted and they need a place to live and I don't know where to refer them. I've called many of you. I've called the county. I think everybody knows me. I will call everybody because we don't have enough affordable housing in Tampa. I invited my mentor, and that's the reason I'm coming today, Steve Glaudet. He came down in January when they did the dedication of the wall. He is the president and CEO of Coalition of Nonprofit Housing and Economic Development in Washington, D.C. His organization has a $150 million trust fund. They deal with all the issues of housing and economic development. As he says, his organization is about 80 nonprofits and 40 for-profit, mission-driven. Everybody working together with government to make sure that they have affordable housing in D.C. and to end homelessness there. Why am I saying this? Because that's what Tampa needs. We need that now. We need a comprehensive plan. As he said to me and others, I know he shortly met with Mayor Castor when she was there, and he talked about preservation. Nobody's talking about that. We have apartments 30 years or 40 years, tax credit is up. In DC, they allow their tenants to buy those apartments. I know Hillsborough County is already allowing nonprofits to buy those apartments so they can keep it affordable. That's what we need to do, okay? And again, I want to thank you for what you're doing. You're doing an awesome job. And as Senator Cruz was here and Representative Dinehart, please call me. I'm willing to go to work. And by the way, I'm working on workforce. So those two work together, housing and workforce. We gotta have to increase these wages, because once the federal government stops all subsidies, we're gonna have really have a crisis on our hands. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we normally line up on the left side of the room. I see 3 people over here. That's fine, you stay there. We'll let the pastor speak next, and then we'll go back and forth until these 3 people are cleared over here. Thank you. Pastor.
Yes, you speaking to me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. I thank God for this beautiful day. I want to thank God. This Pastor Frank Williams, located at 1112 East Scott Street, right here in Tampa. I passed by the Jackson House, and I can't understand why y'all still letting it stand. It's falling down by piece by piece. But over there at my church, listen to me please. Over there at my church, they done put so many citations on my door at the church, only because they said a hole in the wall, the church needs painting. I'm here to tell you, if y'all ain't gonna tear that Jackson House down, I can't understand why y'all picking on me. But I know why y'all picking on me, because I'm a black man and I'm a black preacher. Y'all don't want to hear nothing we got to say. But you must understand, we as citizens of the United States of America, we're being violated all kind of ways. They're going around the code enforcement, taking black folks' property, everything, doing what they want to do, giving it to the white folks, and all this here kind of crap. And you know, we've been here for forever. My brother fought in World War II, and when he come back here, he had to face the white color and all that kind of signs and everything. But you know, you all got to treat people like citizens, not treat them like the color of black or white. That ain't what it's all about. Treat us like citizens of the United States of America, and we'll be glad to accept that. But you all pick on poor black folks and mistreat us in a mighty way. But the thing about it, we know we got the God on our side, and we will provide, regardless of what y'all think about it. We can care less about what y'all think about it. It's about what God think about us, and that's where we stand. And we're going to continue doing and living the life we're living a peaceful life. We don't want to start no war with nobody. And then now we got this old ugly man called Trump running for president. What are you running for president for? If he's going to run for president, I'm going to run for it too. We'll be comparable to one another. And I guarantee you, I might not win over him with mankind, but with God, I already got the victory. And we must tell God thank you. You know, it's so much I want to talk about, but y'all don't give me enough time to talk about nothing. And just like Texas, just a few minutes ago, a white boy walked in there and killed little innocent children in elementary school. And the thing about it, listen here, this is what the police told them. Hey, we can't go in there and attack them now, because we might get shot. Yeah, so what? That's your job. Yeah, you ought to get shot. Yeah, try to do the right thing. People don't want to do the right thing, especially toward black people. And black people ain't doing nothing but holding their head down like it's all right. No, it's not all right. It's not all right. We're going to want to be treated like citizens of the United States, and that's all we ask. We ain't ask you for nothing else. Treat us like they treat the white folk, and we'll be happy with that. And we'll glorify God even more, because right now y'all mistreating us. We go to church there. We got 6 feet from the next person. That ought not to be.
Thank you, Pastor.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You thanking me too quick. I'm not through yet.
Everybody gets the same amount of time, Pastor. Ma'am?
She's not ready. Good morning, Connie Burton. The reason I'm here this morning, and I want to appreciate the family that was awarded such great accommodation. Legacy is important, but I can tell you about a history of a people that has not been documented and many times is not held up. I want to talk about 400 years of free labor that has built America. And if that's too far for you to go back, I want to talk about how here in this city, neighborhoods that was once defined as blighted and poor and undesirable is now becoming unavailable for working class people to live in. You've had enough time. Some of you have a legacy here on this council, and you've heard the ongoing cry of the people that we need a housing program that will lift everybody to a standard of human dignity. That is not hard. We're not asking for 300,000 square footage of housing, but there's a lot of lots in East Tampa that if this administration, along with your push, had political will, we wouldn't have to wait for a comprehensive plan that would come up in 2045. I want to be able to leave a legacy inside of our community. We talk about gun violence in our community. If you go and look at many of those defendants, those that are deceased or those that are having to go to trial, they live with their grandmother. They don't have employment opportunity. No, we want to see you deal with poverty. That's what we want to see you deal with. And as you start untangling the issue of poverty, then we'll get to housing. But as long as we're caught up with what inflation, no, we have to deal with what humanity costs. Because just as well as baseball come through this community, you're going to find a way. Maybe one won't vote that way, but I guarantee you accommodation is going to be made for them. No, inside of East Tampa, we have a lot of lots that is unfitted for traditional homes. Whatever you called them, people would take them. Now we have situations where people are living in their cars. And so what I'm calling on for you, Councilman Gould, you represent the most vulnerable population in this community. We need your leadership to pull your team of board members together so we can have a true housing initiative now. It is dependent upon that before we get to 2024, and those that are planning to run in 2024 that has not put forth a model beyond paper should not get the black vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burton.
Come on.
Tough act to follow. Hi, my name is Stephanie Harrison, and I reside in the 1600 block of Fifth Avenue in Ybor. As a resident and lover of historic Ybor, I implore you all to dig deeper into a case presented to you back on July 14th, FDN 21-125C. This involves the rezoning of a lot in the residential area of historic Ybor City, which would subsequently allow it to be used as a poorly run surface parking lot between two houses. In the strongest possible terms, our neighborhood does not agree with the city's handling of this issue over the past year. On July 14th, council members were directed to vote on this issue without being given all the facts. In the interest of time, here's just one of the pieces of this complicated, weird puzzle. In an email on July 5th, City Attorney Kamaria Pettis-Mackle told our neighborhood association that members of the public are entitled to speak for 3 minutes each, in reference to the July 14th City Council meeting. We rallied an entire neighborhood for weeks. Many of us showed up in person and virtually to speak, and many more wrote letters to you all. Then, at the very end of the day, on July 14th, when our agenda item 117 finally came up, Ms. Pettis-Mackle stood before council and directed that public comment would not be allowed per the code for this type of hearing, which apparently was so confusing, this code, and rarely used, that Ms. Pettis-Mackle must not have understood it herself nor had any of the council members ever heard of it. This stinky onion has so many layers to unpeel, it's impossible to do it here. Luckily, many people, including myself on behalf of the historic Ybor City Neighborhood Association, have been in communication with you all regarding this issue. Since I know you're all busy people, I will be forwarding my latest email again to you all later today, so that's the top of your inbox. Please do the right thing here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Compton.
Thank you, Councilman Citro. Phil Compton for Friends of the River. We're based in East Tampa, and we do support rent stabilization and affordable housing. On PURE, I want to speak to the risk involved. The contractor's analysis of the various options should, in all cases, include an analysis of risk. Was risk included in the analyses completed to date? Funding should require risk analysis. The risk inherent in PURE should not be minimized. These risks may take a generation for any potential harm to be experienced and recognized. None of us may be around by the time we recognize that we did not do our due diligence at this time. What risk might there be? There are a whole host of chemicals. Everything one can buy at a CVS to consume ultimately winds up in our wastewater. Some amounts are now diluted in the bay where we assume no harm is done. Assume, because we really don't know. It is an entirely different proposition to consider using this water to comprise a substantial amount of the lower Hillsborough River's water below the dam, were it to be used for the freshwater minimum flow as is proposed. In assessing the various treatments available, we're faced with questions that today cannot be answered. How much of antidepressants, hormones, fragrances, and every other pharmaceutical product could be found in water used for environmental restoration before it does more harm than good for the fish that swim upriver to spawn towards the dam? More importantly, how much of these chemicals could be still found in drinking water consumed for decades by future residents until it results in disease, or when added to the aquifer? We don't know. No one does. Because there are no standards for many pharmaceuticals, staff is faced with a no-win challenge. How effective must any treatment system be to ensure that this water is safe? No one knows, and no one is likely to know perhaps for years to come. A month ago, the EPA warned that forever chemicals, PFAS, pose a much greater danger to human health than regulators previously thought. But for now, the federal government does not regulate PFAS. The EPA's advisory news levels are so low that they're difficult to detect with today's technology. Places hit hardest with the contamination are near military bases, where PFAS-laden foam were used for decades to fight jet fuel fires. Like big deal? Of course, we could always do the same thing as drought-stricken cities like San Diego plan to do to reuse their wastewater and go with reverse osmosis, the most effective and most expensive treatment. It eliminates 100% of all contaminants. It's great, but we must produce water that is both safe and affordable for everyone. We must achieve both or not go forward. The risk is too high to the health of the residents as well as their ability to pay their utility bill. How about we instead now consult with other cities around the state and together ask DEP to put a hold on the 2032 deadline until such time as standards are established that will allow Florida water departments to go forward with certainty that they are not putting their residents' health or financial well-being at risk, because the risk is real. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is David Bailey. I live on Fifth Avenue in historic Ybor City, and I'm coming to you regarding a case FDN 21-125C that was mentioned earlier. As a resident and developer, I can say in my 20 years of dealing with the city, I've never seen an assistant city attorney advocate so much for a private parking company and present false or misleading statements to city council and to the public who exercise the right to come here and speak before you. The history of this case is obviously too long for me to cover in the 3 minutes that I have, but briefly, about a year ago, the zoning official made a thorough and sound...
I don't want to interrupt too long. You have a right of public comment, but I do want to warn council, this is a quasi-judicial matter. The legal department is reviewing the concerns that were raised by the residents, so this matter is not terminated at this point in time. It is still pending. I just want to put that on the record, make sure council's aware of that. So,
thank you, Mr. Master.
Mr. Master,
Councilman Carlson.
Could you just explain what that means? Does it mean that it might come back before us?
It may come back. Yes. We're looking at what was done previously, what advice was given, looking at the code and the concerns that were raised by the residents. We are in receipt of those emails, so it may come back before you all.
And because of that, we're not allowed to comment at all.
Correct.
Your time will still be the full amount of time.
Thank you. About a year ago, the zoning official made a thorough and sound judgment in this case, denying this new parking lot in historic Ybor City. It was supported by facts, it accurately reflected the history of the property, but strangely, weeks later, the city attorney's office accepted a magic letter from the parking company. 22 years later, with no chain of custody to this letter, never recorded into the public record, they accept this letter and influence the zoning official to rescind his opinion. This does not pass the smell test by a long stretch. Can you imagine the chaos if you allowed that type of a process into your neighborhoods? It would be absolute chaos. So 2 weeks later, we came to speak in front of you, and as you know, we were muzzled, and the glib response from the assistant city attorney was, "It's in the code." That was her response. I'm a developer, and I've been in Ybor City doing work for 20 years, and I've never had a response like that. I've worked with the Barrio Latino Commission where they instruct you, you have this amount of time to do this, here's your notice period, here's the process. That's not what we got. Please read our letters for yourselves. Please look into the details of this case. Ask yourself, why is zoning that was settled 22 years ago being overturned in this way, in this manner? At a time when the historic neighborhood of Ybor City has been promised that these dirt lots and their trash and their noise and their shootings would be temporary. We were told that this was an interim parking lot situation. We were told that. Instead, you all are, pun intended, paving the way for a new parking lot in historic Ybor City. If you have a shred of love for Ybor City, please get in contact with us. Please hear the real story. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, we're going to go one more time over to this lady here, and then we'll come back to you. And then everybody, please, if you're going to speak, line up on the left, my left, the right. Yes, Councilman Goose.
Mr. Massey, can you relate again to the public in reference to that case that we can't contact them talking because it's litigation?
It's still pending. It's a quasi-judicial matter, so really, council can't hear the substance of the matter. It may come back to you all. Again, we're reviewing what happened, so it would be more appropriate for those comments to be held in abeyance, and council cannot respond and really should not be reviewing evidence outside of the quasi-judicial area.
Hey, good morning. I'm Nancy Stevens. I'm a volunteer with the Tampa Bay Sierra Club, and I've been a member of the stakeholders group working with the city on the Pure project, and that's where my comments are. And thank you for postponing for a month the discussion on this, because we did just see that proposed contract amendment just on when I got it in the email over the weekend, and hadn't seen it before that. And even though we've been meeting, the stakeholders have been meeting on a regular basis with the city, so we do appreciate having more time to look at it. But my initial concerns looking at it really is not necessarily the amount of money to do the preliminary phase. I'm encouraged by the preliminary look at 5 alternatives, to do the commitment to do public outreach and do a survey. However, I still have concerns. And my major concern is that this won't slide into a major contract without a stop in between. This is preliminary. We're agreeing to preliminary, we're agreeing to looking at it. My fear is that this contractor will go ahead and do a survey and not really listen to public opinion, not answer the questions. So my fear will be a PR job and not a true back and forth. My other fear is that it will look at the 5 alternatives, do an analysis, and kind of come out with the one that it likes, because it's a contractor. Their primary goal isn't to keep the costs down. Their primary goal will be to get a contract. So my suggestion is that you add a hard stop between this phase and the next phase. That you get all the results, get the analysis of 5 alternatives from these contractors, and it's great that they'll use their expertise to look at them and give an analysis, and have an independent panel look at those results. Go out to the public and get real feedback, get their questions, and have the city answer their questions. And Phil had talked about the contaminants. That's a huge issue. It's expensive to get rid of the contaminants. We don't know what's in the water. We need to understand what's in the wastewater. There needs to be more study of that, and those contaminants have to be removed. So that's not in this part of the contract at all. So that has to be addressed. So that's basically it. We just have an independent panel, and look, we want safe water for the citizens. We want inexpensive water. If we don't have to spend a lot of money on an overblown pure project, we can maybe use it for affordable housing or other purposes that are needed in the city much more than spending money on converting wastewater to drinking water when we don't need to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Am I allowed to comment on the quasi judicial matter? I mean, I do have some things to say since it's public forum.
You have a right of public comment, but we would prefer, this may be coming back to them, where you would have a right to present it, that it needs to be done in a quasi-judicial manner, so that both sides have a right to appear before council at the same time to present both sides of the story for council to make a decision.
Well, I guess, my thought is, since it may be coming back to you or it may not be coming back to you, I'd like to have my 3 minutes to discuss it. In case it doesn't, I believe it was poorly handled. I'd like to introduce myself. My name's Chris Curry. I'm the president of the Historic Ybor Neighborhood Civic Association. This is regarding FDN 21-125C. Myself and many of the residents of historic Ybor City believe that this is being handled with a minimum of incompetence and a maximum of deception. The city attorney and zoning administrator are overlooking basic property law and advocating for property owners instead of the residents. What I mean by that is the property owners trying to assert property rights of a zoning change based on a letter that was written prior to them owning the property. Okay, so if you don't own a property, you can't assert property owners' rights. The magic letter that David Bailey had referenced showed up, was presented to the city attorney's office by Mr. Michelini on behalf of the property owners, and it basically said, we did not want this zoning to take place. It was written on different letterhead. It was found 22 years after the fact. And it just stinks all around. I believe it's being mishandled. Ybor City's the only National Historic Landmark District in Tampa. It's one of 3 in the state of Florida. It should be treated and regarded as like the Eiffel Tower of Paris, right? When people come to Tampa, they need to visit Ybor City. It needs to be something great. It doesn't need to be another parking lot. So I'd ask you, if you do have the opportunity to reconsider 21-125-C, please keep in mind that since the current property owners have owned this property, it has never, ever been used as parking, despite their affidavit that it has. It was never brought into compliance, and this is 22 years, council. In 22 years, they couldn't get it together and bring it up to code as a parking lot, and they're asking you now to give them those exceptions, to give them 6 months to bring it into compliance, and the residents don't think that's acceptable. If it does come up again, please don't allow this to be a parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Someone left the phone. Good morning. My name is Malik Lukman Abdullah, and we have a myriad of problems in our community. And we select leadership to address these issues from a collective standpoint. That collectiveness should be represented by and for the people. And when you don't do that, you're going to get a complaint from Peter or Paul. If Paul's being robbed, Paul is going to holler and scream bloody murder. Peter's not going to say anything. So I say that in reference to the community that we elected you guys to represent. There's a section of the communities that's complaining, that's crying in regard to housing, how housing has impacted underprivileged people, how it has impacted black neighborhoods, the school system, the roadways. When I say the school system, the education that they're getting. Christopher Columbus discovered America. Oh, come on. This stuff is still there. This is a complaint. And leadership is there to look out for the people. If you're not looking out for the people, what is your purpose? What do the people need you for? So you guys should consider that. There are elections coming up, and that community, or these communities that's complaining about the issues, they're going to be the one that's going to say, well, this guy here is not representing my concern. So there's an expression that say, pick your game up. Pick your game up and address the needs and the concern of the community you're supposed to be serving. And apply solutions that will affect the community. There's a complaint about jobs. I go around the neighborhood, all over the neighborhood. I see young black men. This is a product of how these people have been treated, how they have been alienated, how they have been denied. I don't know if you hear this or not, but it's an ongoing situation. It just didn't happen yesterday. So in this ongoing situation, there's a solution. So you guys should contact the community, address the community, get people on advisory boards, make it emblematic of the community that's in that community, in that particular community, not just European men and women that have been a part of the problem. I know, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Next, please.
Good morning, everyone. I am Linda Wiggins Chavis from Faith in Florida. I have spoken a couple of weeks ago about the housing crisis. I am here again to speak about the housing crisis, but what I want to say this time is that when I talked about the crisis becoming catastrophic, some of you agreed with me. What we need now is for someone to have the courage to make a motion to have this declared as a state of emergency. And I, for one, don't want to take your continued silence as either complacency or complicity. We need something to be done, and we need somebody to have the courage to do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Good morning, I'm Reva Iman. I'm here to speak about housing. As a community organizer, I'm out there every day, door to door, listening to the stories. Now, you all have the R3 program, you have the R40 program, it's only temporary. I've talked to people who have waited for rent to come in and got evicted, only for the rent to come in a month later, and them and their children are out there living in cars and things of that nature. That's unacceptable. We need for y'all to make a decision to do something. I hear you talking about these plans, these laws, and what can be done, but right now you need to make a decision because people are being homeless. I'm out here, and I'm a strong individual. People are going to McDonald's and Burger King with their kids just to take showers, to wipe themselves off and brush their teeth because of this. This is a serious situation. I may understand you or your family may not be going through it, but there are many, many people in the city of Tampa that are becoming homeless every day. The funding that y'all are putting into the program, thankful, but that is only temporary. Today, y'all need to do something about making a decision, because the temporary funding is only temporary. Where will you move after that? What is going to happen after that? Every day, someone is becoming homeless. I'm out there seeing it, talking to them. I'm with them, trying to find them, get them solutions, give them the resources that I know, and that's the R3 program or whatever the city have to help them, from electric to things of that nature. But today, we need to make a decision. Because each day that you keep putting this off, there's 20 more people get coming homeless every day. And it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. And it hurts me to my heart that I'm out there beating the pavement, talking to these people, trying to give them those resources, and yet you all come and continue to put this off for many different reasons. Today, you all need to make a decision. Because if you make a decision, it can help someone very soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good morning. My name is Harrison Lundy. I am with the local organization Florida for Change.
I wanted to talk about the events of, I believe, Saturday, July 23rd. For those who aren't aware, the Tampa Convention Center was a host to the Turning Point USA's Student Action Summit. I was out there protesting the event with multiple organizations, and I want to make it clear that none of us were going to stand for their presence there. So not even getting to the Nazi presence that was there, literally with the signs and the costumes or whatever, we were attacked and followed by attendees. We were surveilled. We were hurt by undercover TP USA members. I myself was almost thrown down the stairs of the convention center as I did my best to ensure the safety of my protesters. And so when we talk about the TPD raise that we're talking about, the 18.5% raise, one of our organizers had to beg TPD to intervene at all until he almost lost his voice. So in regards to this raise, TPD has proven time and time again, especially recently, that they are useless. Useless in protecting protesters, useless in responding to mental health crises as it relates to 988, useless in accountability. And if you would like to convince me otherwise, refer to the TPD who were at those protests on Sunday or Saturday, who we had to beg to intervene, or the lack of apology to the family of Arthur Green Jr., the family of a black person who died in a diabetic emergency in TPD's detainment. So I fail to see why TPD needs a raise, especially when we're talking about a housing state of emergency. You want to talk about where's the money? We got the money right there. It was what, like $40 million of tax bonuses or something? You know, we could put that towards affordable housing, public housing. We could put that towards affordable transportation. And like, I shouldn't even have to be up here, you know, doing all of this work. You know, I've been worked through conservative Twitter. I've done the rounds. All right. And so, you know, with all that said, I am demanding a formal apology from the city council and a formal acknowledgement. I've checked everybody's social medias, statements, everything, not one statement, not one apology on behalf of the mayor or the city council that I've seen. And saying sorry after I'm done speaking is not going to cut it. I want something formal. We want something formal. All right, and so if we can't do that, then we are allowing it to happen again. All right, if we are not okay with it, we need to say so. Okay, we need to condemn the events of Saturday, and we need to apologize, and we need to demand the mayor's office does the same. Because 2023, I believe, is an election year, and I just want to drive it home that, you know, all of you are for re-election. And so if we're going to stay in office, I suggest we do the right thing, and it's really time to do better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Alice Moore with Florida Rising, and I'm here representing LaToya Gilbert, who can show some of the things that's happening with being without rent, having to wind up paying, getting a little full because I'm speaking because she is too full to talk. She was working at one of the restaurants, I think the steakhouse restaurant, has lost her job. She was renting with so-called friends in a condo, which they didn't let her know the rules and regulations of renting, and she had to leave in 3 months. She has 4 children. She's living in a hotel with the 4 children. I believe the ages are from 10 to 18, which is really detrimental for children. She works, can you imagine having a part-time job, working for affordable housing and not be able to get? She's in the street talking to people, and she can't get a place to stay herself. Living in a hotel, $700 a week is quite traumatic for someone, and still have the thought of not having a place to stay or even getting a place to stay. She's also battling stage 3 of cancer. So all of this, these are some of the things that's happening to some of the people, a lot of them, we just don't know, that's homeless, nowhere to go, having your children, and you can imagine the effect on the children by having to go place to place if you can go any place. So I know all of the places are full, but these are some of the things that's happening to a lot of the people. And just think, stage 3 of cancer, having to fight that with all the other things. But this is to let you know, these are some of the things that's happening to people in the street, homeless, and living in cars. Just wanted to speak, and like I said, she's too emotional, that's why I'm hugging on to her to be able to tell her part. But please, please, this is not a joke. It's something very, very sincere, and we should not have people on the street, especially children, to be able to do this. So stabilization, rent control, how just a place to stay. Affordable housing is not affordable housing. It's almost a joke. So these are the things that we should work on and be realistic. Think about the people in the street. to have and not have anything. Just wanted to let you know and to say something to you. These are the things that's happening, and this is happening to people all over. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Noah Myers, concerned citizen. I want to start this off by saying it is sort of profoundly offensive that people have to come up here and beg for just decent humanity to be acted upon. We have a housing assistance program here that is basically toothless. It's ineffectual, it takes too long for people to actually get their applications heard and the money to them. And it doesn't even actually go directly to them. It goes straight to the landlords and the leasing management companies that the money is already too much, and it makes it a very slow process for these people to actually get money into their hands and to stay off the street. We can't have that. We cannot have more and more people being out on the street, being rent burdened for long periods of time, and then when they finally get kicked out, just after staving off for a long period of time, being out on the street, to then not have anything to be with them. I mean, it's a squeeze. They are being squeezed. We don't pay enough people. We don't pay the workers enough here. And then their rent is going up at the same exact time. That is the cost of inflation. And the way to fight inflation is not through, it's through increasing taxes on the wealthy in the city and making sure that the people stay in their houses. So the effects of the national events, national patterns that are going on do not affect this city in the same way it does other places. I mean, wouldn't you want this city to be a shining light for the people and not just a place where the rich, another place in this country where the rich are benefiting off the suffering of people? And that is just not okay anywhere, but especially not here in my home with these people here who are begging you to actually act with the urgency that is required. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pointer, if I may, I saw that your name was on the call-in public comment. Would you like me to remove you from that?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
You sure you don't want to run out and call in afterwards?
No.
Okay.
And you know what? I'm glad you brought that up. It's all about the Benjamins. That's what everything circles around. I support these folks about housing, but they can speak more in depth about housing than I can, and I think I have some other issues that need to be addressed. First of all, I want to talk about CMT. I'm looking around at many, many people in this audience who are sitting here, and just the department heads alone, if we average out their income, just in them alone, we've got $1.8 million a year worth of salary sitting behind me. I'm not talking about the people who are further down the food chain. I'm talking about the top echelon. That's $34,616 a week. That is $6,900 for those people to sit here today of our tax dollars instead of letting some of them sit at their desk where they can be called on if necessary. CMT is important. This is a waste of our staff's time. If they are sitting here every single Thursday, we are reducing their productivity by 20%. I'm not talking about the attorneys. I'm talking about our staff who have jobs to do. This is a waste of our money. Citizens need to be able to speak via CMT. I've heard through the grapevine that there's somebody who's told all these people to be here because a month ago, all these people would not be here. Who told them to be here, and why has the policy been changed without letting the public know? Now, back to my other issues. Littering fines should be no less than $500. Anti-Semitism is unacceptable. City Council needs additional staff. 13 and 14 need to be heard immediately. We need to have a junior to Mr. Shelby. We need to have the future to come behind him. We cannot depend on him forever. No one person should ride any train all the way to the station. And we should have somebody in here learning from him now on how to be an excellent representative for our city council. None of our elected officials should be expected to dish out their own personal funds to defend themselves for their jobs. Part-time jobs at that. You guys get less than part-time money. But I also want to make sure that everybody understands there's lots of things that suck about today, but I want you to make sure that you understand that I think Pure sucks. And CMT should remain, and that's pretty much it. I just want to know who told them. Who told them they had to be here? Because all of a sudden, they're here every single Thursday. That wasn't the case for months and months on end. Please, admit who you are.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Goose?
maybe Mr. Bennett can address that. Is there a policy been put out that staff needs, administrators need to be here versus being on camera? I just was wondering.
Good morning, John Bennett, Chief of Staff. Basically, it's all guided by the agenda review on staff reports. Staff reports are moved up in front of the agenda, and so when they require a presence from staff, they make the determination whether they can work here or work at their desk and time it accordingly. So it's really their decision.
Okay, you just want to put on the record their decision. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Takia Johnson. I am a citizen of Tampa, an active voter. I'm a mother, and I reside in subsidized housing. So I want to speak about the housing crisis. So I myself had to apply for one of the resources that our Florida resources available because I lost my job. I'm not I don't have a career. I have a job when I'm able to get a job. And so I take whatever is available to me so that I can provide for my children. And we do live comfortably, but we've had increase in rent twice. And within the last year, the rent increased about $111 in the middle of the year. And so with somebody like me who goes from job to job when those jobs are available, contract jobs, for 6 months, 8 months, however they are available, I have to budget for those types of changes. But when those changes are not, or when those changes are so, they just happen all the time, or they happen more times than I can account for, or they happen at times when I'm not prepared for them because of the budget that I have to set in place. It kind of throws me into a crisis. It shakes my household, and my kids are here with me today in support, but they would have to be with me because when I don't have the opportunity to budget for those type of changes, I can't afford for them to go to after school programs or summer programs. That $100 makes a big difference in my household. And if we had something a little bit more, if we had rent stabilization, I would have a little bit more of flexibility within my household. I wouldn't have to be on pins and needles. I wouldn't have to be concerned about what the next job is going to pay. I would be able to budget better. I would be able to accommodate for a lifestyle that allows for my children not to have to be standing next to me while I speak about adult issues. So if it wasn't for the support of my family, I would be more shaken up. And I would like to know that the people or the execs or whoever it is that I'm putting in place, who I'm supporting, is in support of people like me. And I'm just only hoping that there's more of an interest in your hearts than it is what is showing on some of the panel's faces right now, because it almost seems as if one of the panelists their eyes has been closing the whole time. So I'm just hoping that it's in your heart to make the change and not necessarily your facial expressions. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Hey, come on.
Mentez Knott, Tampa, Florida. It's good to see you. Rated R. Most people here won't know who Rated R is, probably. And most people won't know who Crunk Man is. But if Rated R and Crunk Man can be in the same building at the same time, that speaks a lot for the ambitions and the aspirations of African people, and it shows that we have a concern. The women that come down here week after week that speak on the issues of housing, that's serious. And so what this city council have to know and understand, that it have to be some form of progressive change. We need programs that are going to address the real needs of African people, the future of our race, our young people, our senior citizens. No more Band-Aid, knee-jerk reactionary programs. No more lottery housing, weed and seeds, say no to drugs, say no to crime, gun buyback. All programs designed by the designers to appease the most vulnerable. Temporary Band-Aid suggestions and solutions. Good enough to hold the poor and working class in check long enough to put gentrification programs in effect. It's a master plan. The blueprints are in private and public offices all over the world, corporate boardrooms all over the world. It is called capitalism, a program or a political, social, and economic system that dispossesses the poor, make the rich and powerful feel entitled, make workers increase productivity but see no pay increases, raise gas prices as they see fit in order to benefit their profit margin. A system that has 90% of the world's population living in abject poverty in relation to today's living standards. A system called colonialism, capitalism, imperialism, venture capitalism, slavery, chattel slavery, sharecropping, convict leasing, affirmative action, and other sophisticated names that they recruit the unsuspecting to participate in. What we need is a system called equal distribution of wealth. We need a system called fair housing. We need a system called reparations. In this city of Tampa, we need a system called guaranteed 26% of the upcoming budget. We are 26% of the population, and we need 26% of this budget. African people should not have to experience our entire life expectancy fighting for basic necessities African people should not have to experience our entire life fighting for basic necessities and fighting for our alienable rights. We need our representative of District 5, Orlando Goose, to put forth a proposal that would start addressing exactly how this city of Tampa is going to approach the reparations for Africans people retroactively and how we're going to get 26% of the upcoming budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel.
Good morning, City Council. Well, you guys deal, my name's Rod Hatch, 1013 East Patterson Street. You guys deal with a lot of complex issues. I do not envy you. I'm here today to talk to you about a simple issue. Once again, it's litter. Today, Council will discuss the potential to increase litter fines in the City of Tampa. What I like to see litter be a misdemeanor with a minimum fine of $1,000 and potential community service. I believe based on the reports you have all been given, a $500 fine would be easy to institute and fall in line with the existing ordinances. A $500 fine is a great start for the City of Tampa to address the majority of the source of litter, which are the selfish, ignorant, careless pigs that throw their refuse in the streets, which clog our storm sewers and eventually end up in the Hillsborough River, Bay, and other waterways to remain for 600 years or more. I'd like to address a few things and perhaps add a few other things too. Number one, the main purpose of a litter fine increase is to provide teeth to a compelling anti-litter campaign, which this city will have. I'm sure most of you remember the Keep America Beautiful commercial years ago. Councilman Maniscalco, you're probably too young.
I remember.
Showing the Native American glancing at the litter, and no offense to Councilman Hurtak, you probably are as well. It was very compelling. This fine, in conjunction with the compelling signage campaign, will provide the necessary teeth to do just that. By the way, there's nothing compelling about Keep It Clean Tampa, which is another drum I'll continue to beat. The city just spent $670,000 on the little skimmer and made a commitment of providing a budget for maintenance, fuel, and personnel probably in excess of $100,000 per year, but still has ignored the source of the litter, which the little skimmer picks up. Additionally, the little skimmer doesn't work around the clock, so it misses the majority of the litter that passes through our waterways. Point number three, since moving to Tampa 7 years ago, I first became involved in the community with street cleanups, Hillsborough River cleanups. There's a number of great organizations in addition to Keep Tampa Bay Beautiful. Friends of the Hillsborough River, Jay's Green Team, Pure Initiative, other neighborhood groups that volunteer their time, pick up hundreds of pounds of litter at each event they organize, and at the very next month, dedicate their time once again to the same area and pick up the same amount of litter. I've been talking to these organizations, they're all pretty fed up, and it's just about time to maybe just stop picking it up and just let it accumulate until the City of Tampa gets off their hands and addresses this issue. A $1,000 fine is not excessive. TPD and neighborhood enhancement are already understaffed and overworked. I've already shown you with reports by Tampa Police Department that citations under 15 pounds just don't exist. Lastly, I'm going to skip a few things here. I'm not naive. I know this isn't going to eliminate litter, but it's something that you guys can affect. You guys all talk about climate change, ocean levels rising. This is something you can affect in our lifetime today. This is something simple. And the last thing I want to say too, you know, I'm pretty moved by a lot of the speakers today. Shake it up. You know, I guess there's a law that you can't declare an emergency. So what? It's better to ask for forgiveness than it is for permission.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Letitia P. In regards to Madison Highlands, I'm questioning more about, like, we've been here several times in regards to the increase in the human rights of the senior citizens of this apartment complex. We want to know what investigation agency is going to step in and figure out what is going on. Because after all these fundings are exhausted, it still remains that they keep increasing, and no one has done really anything about it to figure out what is the method to the madness. There's a lot of Fair Housing Act violation, discrimination, harassment, unfair treatment of the seniors, and we need to know who is going to step in to figure this out. This has been going on. We have this management company that's been treating these seniors unfairly, and in reality, the affordable housing, how is it affordable if these seniors are on fixed income and every so often the rent keeps going up, that you can't even budget out what is going on? So can we have some of these questions answered? Can we have an investigation done? What is going on?
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christine McFarland, and I am a voter, and I'm here to support Florida Rising, as well as I took off today to be here because I work 2 jobs Monday through Friday, and I'm here because I paid $12.50 for a 1-bedroom apartment, working both of my jobs, and I'm dealing with. I'm gone sun up to sundown, and I come home and I deal with flood. Now the amount of money that I'm paying a month, and I only been in this apartment that I'm having hell with for 30 days. I just moved in this apartment, so I'm here to support everything that's going on today, and I'm speaking on people that can't come up here and speak because I work hard. I work real hard. I work real hard. And it's stressful for me. When I come home, I have to walk ankle high when it rains. We are in hurricane season. It rains a lot in Florida. As I leave out my house this morning, the water sits. I done already called the code enforcement. Before I came here, I just left the courthouse. I'm filing paperwork now because the amount of money I'm paying, I ain't gonna even complain about the amount because I'm in a 1-bedroom and I don't raise my kids. My kids are grown. But I don't think I should be paying this amount of money if I have to live like this. I done paid for outside people as of Terminex people to come in and spray my apartment, come back and treat my apartment because I don't live like that. So, and I'm dealing with mold on my cabinets. I done complained to the apartment. I'm keeping all my documents that I put in the portal and everything. I'm keeping track of everything. I'm taking videos. I barely have pictures. I'm recording videos and everything concerning with my apartment. So I just want y'all to know, I'm here just to let y'all know that please just try to help everybody with this situation because it's hard. It's hard. It's hard. I only have 2 days off. Lucky my job, I'm getting paid just being here. But God bless y'all.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Goode.
Young lady, you live in the city limits?
I'm sorry?
You live in the city limits?
Yes.
Right. Go in that door right there and give my Miss Wilcox your name and your address, and we'll send a memo to code enforcement to look at your apartment and take a look at that and see what's going on. Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you were aware, the Secretary of, I was surprised. The Secretary of Business and Professional Regulations called me, and I believe she called
She's
everybody.
called everybody,
She
yes.
called everybody,
And we've already decided on who takes jurisdiction on what.
Yeah, so they've done a good job, and the public needs to know that, we figured out what maybe the communicational breakdown was lying at, and I'm glad that they were able to call and hear from the councilors our concerns, and they assured they have enough staff, they're on it, and again, I've talked to our people in code to make sure that we're working together and get some of these issues solved. But I did tell the secretary, for the record, that what I see is happening is that you have a bunch of poor people who've been living in undesirable places, and now their rents are increasing quadruple, and now they're complaining because they figure out, why do I have to pay this kind of money or be put out because of these issues? So I think they're understanding that from their level. But I just want to put on the record that we did speak with the state, did call us, and they're saying that they're going to be really trying to work to do a better job on it.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Marissa Bodden. Here to talk about, I hear a lot about stormwater runoff, so I'm here to talk about some trees can be the solution to a lot of our problems. Everyone kind of knows what global warming is, the increase in the Earth's temperature. Heated temperatures have been blamed for modifying rainfall patterns, amplifying coastal erosion, altering crop growth, melting ice caps, and altering the ranges of some infectious diseases. People that live in more populous areas suffer more health-wise due to emissions from vehicles, commercial buildings, and homes with less trees to filter out the carbon dioxide and provide fresh oxygen. The greenhouse effect is beneficial for life on Earth. By cutting down carbon-absorbing forests simultaneously with the high use of fossil fuels, carbon dioxide levels have increased substantially since the Industrial Revolution. Air pollution is one of the leading causes of death around the world. The population of Tampa is almost 400,000, making it the third largest city in Florida and 53rd largest city in the United States. The area of the city of Tampa is approximately 175 square miles. That equates to about 2,285 people living in each square mile of land. There are approximately 28,576 trees located in the city of Tampa. That equates to about 12.5 people per one tree. The city of Tampa trees have been estimated to remove about 14 million pounds of carbon dioxide per year. Aside from removing pollution, trees also help conserve energy by lowering cooling costs. They filter stormwater runoff, and mature trees even increase property values. Costa Rica is the first tropical country to have stopped and subsequently reversed deforestation. In 1940, 75% of Costa Rica was cloaked in lush rainforests. Then loggers arrived and cleared the land to grow crops and raise livestock. In 1950, forests covered more than one-half of Costa Rica. By 1995, forest cover had declined to 25%. Soon after, the government in 1996 made it illegal to chop down forests without approval and authorities, and the following year it introduced PES. Costa Rica's Payments for Environmental Services Program is a financial mechanism of the state to the owners and holders of forests and forest plantations for the environmental services they provide. In this program, landowners receive direct payments for the environmental services that their lands produce when adopting sustainable land use and forest management techniques. It makes direct cash transfers to private landowners for 5 or 10-year contracts for different activities of forest protection, reforestation, sustainable forest management, and agroforestry. I propose we implement a similar program in the city of Tampa to pay homeowners to plant local trees and bring multiple benefits to Tampa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, City Council. My name is Nathan Hagan. I'm here this morning to support my friends in asking for relief. We're in a housing catastrophe right now. That requires extraordinary actions to address, and we need to protect our tenants citywide. If you have a better idea than banning price gouging make a motion and do it. If you don't, let the people vote on it. For me, it's that simple. They may not vote for it. They may not pass if it goes to an election. It may not work. There will be people who will be forced out of their home by landlords who are unscrupulous and want to take advantage of folks and realize they can't in a regime of rent stabilization. Those people are going to gouge those tenants anyways. It's a sad situation either way you go. Other places have done this. Most of Europe has rent control. It's not a radical idea that has not worked anywhere. There are downsides to it. It's not a perfect policy. It doesn't solve every problem. This is one item in a long menu of things that we need to do. If we're concerned about developers, exclude new development. It's a one-year deal. You know, next year we'll be right back here. If we haven't solved the issue with some other solution, maybe we'll be talking about this again. But it's not going to scare developers away. There's ways around that. This is about preserving housing for people who are here today who are getting displaced. Once we do this, once we stop the bleeding, we need to pass comprehensive land use reform to build so much housing that this never happens again. Minneapolis did this a couple years ago, and last year they're the only major city in the country that did not have significant rent increases. ADUs need to come first. That's an easy thing. Parking minimums next. Exclusionary zoning. These are the things that I come here and talk about every week. These are real solutions that have worked in other places, that places like Portland and California and Minneapolis and Charlotte, all kinds of cities across the country are adopting land use regulations to address affordable housing. Tampa has done nothing. I guess I'll reiterate that again. Once we stop the bleeding, we need comprehensive land use reform so we can build more housing for people to live in, to preserve our environment, and to support transit. I'll add behind that, today we talked about and we're going to talk again, I guess, about the comprehensive plan vision. I just would ask all of you to understand whether we have the resources right now and the commitment by county, by the city, by the planning department to put the resources behind this vision to actually accomplish it. Do we have the resources to end exclusionary zoning? Do we have the resources to rewrite Chapter 27 so that neighborhoods will actually support development that provides housing that we need? We have issues with our land development code and with our comp plan that we need to address that take real hard work and a lot of resources to do. I'm not speaking for the planners in the room, but I hope that you all are very confident that we have all the resources that we need and we can accomplish all the goals that we need to accomplish in the next year and a half. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bobby Creighton. I live in Ybor Heights. I'm going to keep my comments very short today because I know there's many people here that have testimony that they would like to share. I'm here to support Florida Rising and all the other members of the citizens of the city who are here to discuss the housing crisis that we're in. Some people like to say that we're a victim of our own success. Well, you just heard the previous speaker mention that there are things that we can do with regards to land use reform. We're not a victim of our own success. We're a victim of neglect of previous councils to recognize that due to complacency, we've painted ourselves into this corner and now people are out on the street. We have an opportunity right now to make changes to prepare for a better future, a more successful future, a future where people don't have to worry about if they're gonna have a roof over their head the next month. I strongly encourage you, like Representative Diane Hart said at the beginning of this meeting today, to work with her, work with other cities, work with other city councils, work with the organizations in your community to organize constituents, to send a message to Tallahassee that we need radical change right now, and putting up with the status quo is not sufficient. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Keela McCaskill, and I'm here, of course, to support affordable housing. Last week, I made a public apology because publicly, I think I doubted the leadership of Ms. Nicole Travis. And she came in and really did the opposite of what I was expecting. So I publicly want to say, sorry for doubting your leadership, and thank you for bringing a certain type of leadership that will, just revitalize or build encouragement again, or it made me see the hope and that we can change East Tampa. So with her addition of Mr. Elise Drumgo, the community is excited about the possibility and encouraged by the leadership that's now represented. I'm a fair and a just woman, so I repeat myself again because publicly I doubted her, so publicly I apologize. I'm here today, as I mentioned, we already know the issue. We live it, we see it, examples have come here before. Everybody knows that Tampa is pretty much at the front of a housing crisis. I was contacted by a national news station saying, hey, what's going on in Tampa? They flew in to watch, to see the market, to see the different people that needed assistance as it relates to rentals and as it relates to housing. And the last time we were here, the legal team somewhat said, you got to prove it's a burden and it's a crisis and whatever else. And I'm sure they encourage you not to declare this an emergency because of the possibility of a lawsuit. The operative word is possibility. What we know is that multiple thousands of people are being displaced in Tampa. The people that voted you in, the people that are here, they are being displaced. Working people, should I add. What we know is that Tampa has seen a 36% rental spike. That's unacceptable, particularly most people don't have a 36% increase in their salaries. What we know is that slumlord activity is on the rise. In addition to the rent spikes, slumlord activity is on the rise because they can potentially get more money. That's where that tenant advocacy program will come into place. So you won't have rental increases every year. They have a lease. You can't increase it that much in 1 year anyway. Somebody needs to be looking at that. What we know is that we are victims of our own success. We were not, and then we didn't properly prepare for all the growth, but not making this an emergency also will protect the people, the citizens in this city. What we know is that $5 million was placed in a fund to assist, and it was depleted in 2 days. My question today is, what else do you need to see? What else has to happen before the urgency of a crisis is declared? When there was a hurricane, the only reason it's declared an emergency is because multiple thousands of people are being displaced. It wasn't the water. It wasn't the wind, it was multiple thousands of people are being displaced. I'm not seeing the urgency as it relates, as if this were a hurricane. We need to see that same urgency in this crisis. It is an emergency because multiple thousands of people are being displaced. If not doing this, it's gonna decrease voters. We don't care who's in office if we live in our car. We don't care if we have to, who's in office if we taking baths in McDonald's. So again, what else has to take place? And I'm just encouraging that it's declared an emergency today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, unless I see no one else getting up to my left, your right to speak, this woman will be the last speaker in chambers. Can you please line up over there, please, and thank you.
Good morning. I'm here to talk about the new requirements in order to get an apartment.
Your name, please.
Takara Morel. Okay, so the new requirements now is you have to have make 3 times the income to either get into apartment. I have a daughter, she's 24 now, and she is a nurse here in Tampa. And because she was $50 short of the 3 times the income, she couldn't get an apartment. And then the other apartments that is based on income, she made too much income to get into those. So, I mean, there's nothing in between. You either not make enough or make too much. Like, what is it that can be done, about that? So because she couldn't $50 short here and too much there, she was forced to live with me, even though she's, nursing here and making good money and can afford to pay her rent. How do we go about, finding somewhere in the middle for the ones who can afford to pay rent? Can we at least, try to start there? They gonna answer? Well, can y'all at least, try to find somewhere in the middle for the ones who can't afford to pay rent, but can't $50 short over here and too much over there? They have to start somewhere. It's ridiculous. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Good morning, Council. Robin Lockett with, of course, Florida Rising. How can local governments and voters stabilize rents? First, local governments must pass an ordinance that identifies and backs up with evidence that They are experiencing an existing housing emergency, which is so grave as to constitute a serious menace to the general public. Local governments do not need to declare an official state of emergency like they might during a hurricane. In that same ordinance, they should propose the policy intervention that they will address the crisis, such as limiting rent hikes. The law requires them to find that such controls are necessary and proper to eliminate the housing emergency. If the ordinance passed, the question must then go to the voters. If the voters approve it, the policy can be in place for 1 year under Florida law. The local government and voters must repeat these steps each following year to keep the policy in force. I come here every week. People come here every week. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm so serious about this. It's a shame if we have to force you to have the will. The young lady said earlier which was very, very telling. Not looking at your faces, she hopes that she reaches your heart. The possibility, supposedly, what could happen, all of those other things, is out of the window. You have a responsibility. If people are hurting, and you know they are, you have a responsibility to do the right thing. The only thing that's left right now, you've already declared it a housing crisis back in February. Now we need for you to have the will to put it on the ballot so we, the people that put you in office, can vote on it. Point blank, period. It's amazing to me. Rents, as I said last week, money is coming into the system, hand over fist, right? Supporting it, supporting people with rent issues, supporting people with mortgage issues, supporting people with everything. That money is going to stop. And where will we be? You wring your hands every week. I watch you, right? We want to do something. We want to do something. This is an opportunity for you to do something. An example was given last week about what you do up here and what you say in the community. Coming into the community to say something different and voting differently up there, we're watching you. So it's putting you on point. And I'm so serious about this. Have a great day.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, we're now going to go to public comment online. Mr. D'Angelo, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Please, you have 3 minutes, Mr. D'Angelo.
My name is Angel D'Angelo, born and raised here in Tampa. First thing I'm going to say real quick is the behavior of Tampa Police Department on Saturday was completely unacceptable. Not to be confused with surprising, but completely unacceptable. So I'm going to echo the comment about approving the raise. I mean, Creative Loafing said they had about 19 scandals in the last year. They're under DOJ investigation for racism yet again. So that's like a 1% raise for every scandal. I'm thinking about applying myself, because if I performed that way, I wouldn't be getting a raise. I'd be getting a 0% pay. So throwing that out there, although I know that won't move y'all, because we're just going to do more of the same, more policing instead of resources. Y'all already know this is a housing emergency. This is an emergency. If y'all don't act quickly, this will be a stain on your legacy as an elected body, as a resident of Tampa, as a human being. You have the power, we don't. But we should at least. We should be able to go to the ballot and vote on it. With the rent increasing over 30% on average, they don't need to increase it again next year. Like, control it completely. I'm for control, but if we need to stabilize it and give them like a 5% buff, fine. Do one of those things, but do it quickly. We've been coming to you since February. I've been coming to you all for years, but the community at large since February. Months and months and months passed. I could not delay at my job the way you are. So I expect a state of emergency declared today. And anyone that does not vote on it, does not approve of it, you can expect, no matter your record on any other issue, that I will not advocate for you to be reelected. I'll advocate the opposite. Because we need elected leaders that are going to do the work that's required. Thank you, and I hope you pass the test.
Thank you. Mr. Garduno, are you online?
I am, thank you.
You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you, sir. My name is Eric Orduno. I am the Government Affairs Director for the Bay Area Apartment Association, P.O. Box 151958, Tampa. I appreciate this opportunity to address the City Council, and certainly there are a lot of housing issues that have been discussed today. I think everybody can agree that rents have gone up. That is without a doubt. We know that. Last year, I think the data point that was often cited was CoStar data saying that rents had increased 24%. That and that's a data point I think everybody in my industry, everybody in the community could agree to, because that was, you know, that's based on actual data. Well, there's other data points that people I think need to be updated on, because there's certainly been changes in the market that people should be aware of. So this is also recently reported from CoStar. 1, Tampa is among the top 10 markets with the highest new supply coming into the market compared to its 3-year average. 2, Tampa is among the top 10 markets to see vacancy rates increase between fourth quarter 2021 and second quarter 2022. 3rd, Tampa is among the top 10 markets to see the heaviest decline in rent growth. So that 24% figure that was last year is, according to CoStar now, is 14%. They're projecting it to go down to 8% by the end of the year. And this is a result of more units coming online. That's the whole point. We need to get more housing built, and putting up various, ordinances and legislative, proposals that would discourage housing is the last thing we want to do. We definitely agree that land use changes and new programs that focus especially on affordable housing is what needs to be done. We've got lots of ideas in that category, and we'd love to come and share them with you, each city council members, and really work with you and others in the community to move forward on an agenda that will actually help the housing situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Nurse, are you online?
Chair, the only other registered speaker that's logged on at this time is Ms. Carol Ann Bennett.
Thank you. Ms. Bennett, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hello, everybody. My name is Carol Ann Bennett. I'm a lifelong resident of Tampa. I'm also the fan representative in the stakeholders that the city's meeting with regarding Pure. And about a month and a half ago, we came before you because something was being voted on by y'all that was buried, the very last line, very tiny blurry print on a document y'all were voting on. It mentioned Pure. And we found out because Nancy Stevens and I combed the agenda and combed the items in SIRE, and we found it. And we came to you because we were very upset that the Pure stakeholders were not notified. The city council was voting on something that had to do with Pure. And the solution was to remove that one line item from what you were voting on. And several representatives of the city, including Gene Duncan, apologized for the fact that the Pure stakeholders were not notified of this, and said it won't happen again. And today it happened again. I was scouring the agenda like the crazy person that I am, and I saw something about Pure and notified Nancy and the other stakeholders. And it's very upsetting that yet again, you all were set to vote on something that had to do with Pure, and none of the stakeholders had been notified. Last Friday, the stakeholders were supposed to have a meeting with the city. That was postponed to tomorrow, yet during the back and forth emails about that, not once was it mentioned that today you all were speaking on something that had to do with Pure. I don't think that this is a deliberate action, but I think it is a problem, a real problem. We've gotten repeated commitments that nothing about Pure will slide by, that the stakeholders will be notified about absolutely everything that's going on with Pure. And no matter how many people promise that, it is not happening. So I'm going to ask you again I'm trying to bring this to your attention so that once again, there can be an awareness of the fact that this commitment has been made, that the citizens will be notified about anything and everything, no matter how big or small, that has to do with Pure. I thank you very much.
And there is no other public comment online.
Mr. Chairman, point
Councilman
of
Goods.
personal privilege, sir. I've heard enough today, I've heard enough all year about this housing situation. The community gave me an assignment, and I said a couple of weeks ago that I was going to come back with information in reference to the assignment. I've come back with that. So I just want the clerk just to enter that into the record, please. I'm going to give all council members a copy of what I've researched in reference to the housing crisis emergency and declaring a state of emergency and putting it on the ballot. Mr. Chairman, it is clear that Tampa is facing a housing state of emergency. Data shows that Tampa is one of the 3 top metros in the state in terms of rent growth, falling only behind Miami and Orlando. Tampa's area median rent is $2,098, reflecting a 35.8 year-over-year price increase. Everyday individuals and families throughout the city are forced to choose between paying rent and affording the necessities of life. As of May 9, 2022, 64,000 households in Hillsborough, Pinellas, Manatee, Sarasota, and DeSoto counties are behind on rent. And according to data from the U.S. Council on Homelessness, Florida has the 3rd largest homeless population in the country. News reports cite the study after study showing that Florida residents are some of the most cost burdened in the nation. I'm sure that every council member on this dais can attest to the overwhelming influx of phone calls and emails from the constituents seeking housing assistance. Wage and insufficient housing inventory pre-pandemic led on the trajectory we are now on in the COVID-19 only exacerbated the problem. Tampa has seen the highest population growth in Hillsborough County from 2010 to 2020 and is expected to grow an additional 27% by 2045. Although growth of this nature is welcome, it comes with the unintended consequences of compounding pressures on the already struggling housing market. Zillow reports that the inventory of available homes in Tampa dropped 29.5% in February of this year, leading to historical low vacancy rates throughout the city. This unavailability of housing units has increased housing instability for some of the city's most vulnerable population, including children. Research shows that the moving 3 or more times in 1 year, often called multiple moves, has been associated with negative health outcomes in children who move frequently and are more likely to have chronic conditions and poor health related services. Based on the overwhelming evidence from both the public and the private sector, I ask that the city declare a housing emergency. I motion for the city attorney to prepare an agenda item declaring that a housing emergency exists, which is so grave that it constitutes a serious menace to the general public, and instituting measures that are necessary and proper to eliminate the existing housing emergency. The city attorney should expeditiously prepare an ordinance meeting all the requirements of Florida Statute Section 166.043 so that a final vote can be held by this city council no later than August 23rd, 22, along with the language to be presented on the city ballot in order to meet the deadline provided by the supervisor elections for the November ballot. An attachment document has been prepared by legal advisors that I've come across who've given me the information to lay out requirements needed to implement further review for the ordinance.
Second.
Is this to be prepared by city legal or city council attorney?
No, city legal, sir. I think we understand it. City legal, I've already given a document that they don't have to do a lot of legwork, but I need to review it and bring something back for the ballot for the voters.
Just wanting to be specific on that. We have a motion made by Councilman Goods, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Any discussion? Yes. Please, any discussion? Councilman Maniscalco.
First of all, Councilman Goods, thank you for your leadership. I know it's not easy. Nothing is, but I think we've heard the cries of the people, and we need to take action It's up to us as a city council, it's up to us as decent human beings to help one another in whatever capacity that we can. You have come here week after week. People have been suffering for a long time. Call it a victim of our success, whatever it is. We cannot allow more and more people to be on the street facing eviction. It could affect anybody. We could be there. It could, anybody's one paycheck away, one disaster away. And we need to do whatever it takes, because that's what we were elected to do, to help the people that are asking for help. So, thank you.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
I 100% support this. It should go on the ballot. We're doing all of these things. People are coming to us, they're asking for help, and we're being told that there's not a lot we can do, but we can put it on the ballot. We can leave it up to the people. That's what everyone is asking us to do. They're asking us to help, and as I said before, I've realized how I thought I could get things done faster here, and that's just not the nature of government. But the nature of the people power is a little bit different. So we are still working incredibly hard, and you know it, and we're working as partners to do everything we can in the background, and it's not going to stop me from supporting more money in the budget to help people where they are right now. But the people want this done, and I don't see a way, I don't see a reason to not support that. So thank you all. Thank you, Councilman Goods, for all your hard work on this.
Councilman Carlson.
Yes, thank you. I think it was 3 years ago I made a motion to spend a minimum 30% of the CRA money on affordable housing. I've supported every affordable housing initiative that we put forward. I've supported rental assistance. I created Tampa Scorecard 3 years ago to point out the problems of poverty and the disparities between men and women and blacks and whites and other issues so that we could try to address these issues. But I am not in any way going to support putting anything on the ballot. It is very clear that this is a short-term initiative. I've lived in cities that have rent control, and if the state allowed us to have longer rent control and do this in a different way, that's fine. In philosophy, to people who haven't studied the state legislation, rent control sounds like a good idea, but basic economics 101, they're going to be if this goes into effect, there are going to be thousands of people who will be displaced when this starts, and it's not going to be on my shoulders that we displace people, because what will happen is that the landlords will double or triple the rent, expecting that this rent control will last at least a year, or that it might be renewed. What I would rather we do is, like I proposed with Representative Hart, is that we and the folks in the room, let's lobby Tallahassee to change those state laws. Let's take away the preemptions and allow the city to do the things we do. We're working very hard, and we've been working closely with many of the folks in this room to try to change the zoning and other policies to try to move these issues forward. As I said, we had 8 years of neglect, not just neglect, but going backwards. We had an administration that took benches out of parks and tore down affordable housing and brutally attacked poor people. And we've tried to change that in the last 3 years, but it's really hard to change these things immediately. The reason why I'm going to vote against this and not support it at all is because I don't believe that we should pass something that will make the problem worse and hurt people when we should be passing initiatives to help people. Just because somebody in Tallahassee or somebody out of state wants this, and it's obvious that somebody wants this because they want Tampa to be the guinea pig so that we can challenge the state law. Instead of doing that, let's run an advocacy campaign to get Tallahassee to change the law. Let's not spend hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars of this city's taxpayer monies and other cities' taxpayers' money so that we can do an end run to try to change the state law. Let's just go straight to Tallahassee and change the law instead. This is not the way to do it. It's money and time that we should have spent to try to help people with the real problem. And when thousands of people are pushed out because landlords are doubling or tripling rates, I don't want to say I told you so then, but I will cry along with you because this will have hurt them so badly. Thank you.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've heard both sides of the issue. Certainly, they're both valid. When you look at money well spent, I earlier said I don't mind falling. I just worry about the landing. Lawsuits are won and lost. So a lawsuit to me doesn't worry me unless I lose it. And this city has just been, or going to pay about $1.5 million to $1.75 million, something that we voted on 4 or 5 years ago, based on another city's ordinance. And we lost. We didn't lose, they lose. The problem is our ordinance that we wrote mirrors that city's. So what do you think, we're gonna win that one? Of course not. So it's better off selling it, settle the lawsuit. However, let me go back. There's certainly, something's gotta trigger those that really have the responsibility for doing this. And in this case, you're on one side or the other. So when you look at an ordinance, if it comes from the city, but the city really doesn't have the whole authority, it comes from a higher up, another government. And I'm not trying to pinpoint another government, but the reality is that when you are a city, you're not part of the state government. The county is part of the state government, not the city. So when you look at these things, the monies that come in, I heard people come to the mic today and say, well, take money from this account, take money from that account. And the problem with taking money from those accounts is those are enterprise funds that you cannot use for anything else other than for that unit of government that creates their own money, to make their own payroll, to pay their own taxes, to pay their own insurance, to pay their own bond services. So you can't take that money to do what you want to do with it because it's bonded out. And if you use that money, and as soon as they hear about it, your interest rate's going to go up in the bonding market. So what are you gaining? You're getting a net loss, not a net gain. So we borrow money just like everybody else. So these are the things that I'm looking at. However, all that being said, I don't like to walk any fence because you're going to slip and fall. I don't care who you are when you walk fences. So I'm looking at this as saying, just maybe, this is a wake-up call to another government, that we've shaken the tree enough so that the acorns finally fall. So maybe I should support this, even though I know I'm going to get a lawsuit and I know I'm going to lose. I know that. However, the shaking of another government is where it comes from, and maybe you can't lose there if we lose here. So therefore, although I agree with Mr. Carlson and what he said in a lot of the areas that he talked about, I want to shake that tree because this money's going to run out no matter what happens. And if they run out, what happens? Where's you going to kick the can to? The can will be worn out. It's been kicked so many times. So you have to have an ending somewhere in some life. And let's face it, we're all born with an expiration date. We just don't know which one it is on a humanity side. But this can doesn't have an expiration date because we kicked it so many times, it's worn off. Not us, the whole government's process that we've been through. So I'm going to support this, even though I believe we're going to lose. And you go say, how can you do that? Because I'm looking at the end result, not the beginning. You know, you don't win every sport game by throwing a touchdown. Somewhere along the line, you got to kick a field goal. And guess what? It's got to go in between the two goalposts. And that's not guaranteed. Neither is this. So we're not in the fourth quarter. We've been on double overtime. And we still don't know the results. Because this is an ever-ending thing that possibly may never end. It may get better, but I don't think it'll ever end. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
And Councilman Vieira. Councilman Vieira.
Thank you very much. And pardon, again, I have COVID, so my mind isn't working as well as it usually does. You know, a lot of good points made on this issue. I think that all seven of us share a heart for affordable housing and whatnot. I'll be, in short, I'll be voting to move this forward. And yes, I have some questions from legal, particularly on one issue, on the number of households this will affect. That is, I don't want to overpromise. And that's something that really, really bothers me as an elected official is a general principle, the idea of overpromising to people. Because there's ways that we can do things right here, right now. This could be one of them. So I certainly think that's certainly something that's worth scrutiny. Councilman Carlson, his words, I just coming in his defense, because I know I've been on the 6-1 sometimes myself, and it sometimes takes a lot to do the one on a 6-1 vote. And he's always had a stellar record on affordable housing. So again, I think that we're all very, very united on the end. Maybe disagree just a little bit on the means, but just in that regard, for that perspective vote. Thank you for hearing my rambling thoughts. Thank you.
Since this is directed to legal, if I could just let council be aware of some things that we're to have to deal with that are practical. First of all, I appreciate Councilman Goods putting this together. It looks to be largely based on a similar measure that Orange County took, I think, earlier this week.
Well, it came from, it's the different attorneys from different agencies that came up with some drafts.
But the outline of it is very, very similar to what I think Orange County just moved earlier this week. We obviously will have to look at this. I mean, it needs to be tailored toward the city of Tampa, and that takes a bit of time. It also, we need to verify the findings that are being made in this to make sure that they're accurate. Because the statute does require that we make findings as a basis for declaring a state of emergency for the housing crisis. We also need to make findings in the proposed ordinance that this will be a measure that will address that crisis. So those are the two things. One of the things that, just so the council's aware, that we're lacking that Orange County has, which is the only other government we're aware of in Florida that is moving forward in the same direction as this body is, as Orange County has done a housing study. So they did have analysis and facts on which to rely. Also, Orange County is a county government, somewhat to Mr. Miranda's point, which encompasses the entire Orange County area. So you're dealing with everyone. Not saying that you don't have the authority to do it within the city of Tampa, but I do want to point out that our analysis may be different because we are a city and we're only a fraction, about a quarter of the entire population of Hillsborough County. And a lot of the apartments, a lot of the folks that are impacted by real increases are in unincorporated Hillsborough County, and anything that you all would do would not have an impact on that needs to be made abundantly clear, I think, to folks. So it's we're a different animal. This is a different type of thing. The other thing I want to make sure council's aware of is that to put all this together, given the time frame to get it on the November ballot, is extremely tight. August 23rd is the deadline to get anything to the supervisor's elections office. This has to be done by ordinance under Florida law. There has to be a minimum of 10 days between first and second reading. You have to have 2 readings of an ordinance in the state of Florida. So I just want to warn council, this is complicated. There's a lot of moving parts, and this may be very difficult to put together that time frame.
Well, let me say this, Mr. Morrison. I appreciate you. I respect you. But you always been up front with me, and I appreciate you for doing that. But we are in a situation here now. We have an attorney's office that's having attorneys. We outsource attorney, other firms do whatever. So to me, with all due respect, I don't want to hear those excuses. I just want to see us be able to move because the people are hurting. When I go to Popeyes on yesterday, the whole crew in Popeyes is talking about their apartment complex now. I'm not going to mention the name right now. They've just raised their rent, and these people got to be out. Then I go, and last week I voted on an issue here, and it was the right thing to vote on because it was legal. But in my heart, it was wrong. When I got students right now, parents are calling me, my kid can't go to school this year because the seniors, upperclassmen, are going to be moving back into the dorm. And now those freshmen can't go to school because those parents can't afford to pay for housing. But then I voted on something that I've got luxury student housing going up at places. Then how does that look to people who say, you voted on that? I just explain why I voted on that, which I had no problem with doing that. But when I hear these cases, and I don't know how many people in this diocese have ever gone hungry, who have parents have been out of work and your lights have been cut off for a couple of days because your mom and dad, that happened to me. I said I would never. That's what me and my brother we got to make sure we got a job because my dad got laid off because of his back and my mom was sick. So I've had my lights turned off. I've gone a week without eating and saying, man, we're so hungry. So I understand what some of these people are talking about. So that's why I have to do what I have to do. It may not be seen when other people say, oh, he's again that angry black man. He's just no. I'm doing it because I understand what some of these people are talking about, what they're going through. And if you never experienced something, you don't know. But I've experienced those things. So it's the passion in me that makes me do this. And I just can't sit up here and be the representative of District 5, and my district is multifaceted. I got rich people, poor people, I have alcoholics, I have everybody. But I have 53% that is counting on me all the time. That all the time they're counting on me. So I'm sorry, some people are gonna be upset, but so be it. We get sued all the time, I be sued, so it doesn't really matter. Let's get the job done. So do whatever we have to do to get it back here if we can and get the job done. That's what the people want us to do. But again, I respect you, sir.
No, I appreciate that, and I'm not saying that the legal department is not going to work on this and try to move it as quickly as we can. I'm just trying to make council aware of the timeframes, and there are steps that would need to be done, and there's an analysis, and that just wanted you to know there.
Councilman Brand.
Thank you. And furthermore, to keep on that can item, there's a difference between affordable housing and housing that's affordable. So I'm just throwing it out so you can figure it out. And there is a difference. So what I'm saying is, the only way to get out of this thing is to build houses that are affordable. So how do you do that? By what did we ask last week to find out how many lots we have and what it takes to build and what type of housing you can build in those lots? Because you have to lower the cost. You just can't say, here, go build them. And then you can't afford to pay for them. So what do we gain there? Eviction again? Then you got to look at another thing. When you build something that's affordable, no matter what you call it, what are you going to do with raising electrical stuff? What are you going to do with other things? You have to have, not only for those that right now can't afford to rent, not only for those that can't afford to pay, but what are you doing for the environment? I heard today all the environment speak, and guess what? I'm not an environmentalist, and I do more for the environment than anybody stood on that stand today and speak about it, because I've done every damn thing of it. And I sat here and I listened to these people talk to me, and I'm saying, don't ask what the government can do for you, ask what you can do for the government to satisfy things. And you know what? No one says that. And you threaten me with loss of election? You can't win every ball game. You can't win every football game. You can't win any basketball game, but you can't lose them all either. So a threat to me means I come from the same neighborhood Goose does. People that talk don't bother me. The silent ones are the ones that are going to whip on you. That's what I learned in the neighborhood. So the talkers, they just love to talk. The doers don't say much, but they do hurt you. So what I'm trying to say is, live up to the responsibilities that we all have, look at yourself first in the mirror, and then follow what is right for the people. And that's all I'm asking. But going back again, you got to have solar in your houses. Show me how many environmentalists got solar. You got to drive different automobiles. Show me how many of them have that. You got to have no grass or little grass. Show me how many have that. Not too many. So I'm listening to all this, and inside I tell myself, what a wonderful world. They're asking me to do something that they themselves don't do. And I love that. But this is a different animal that we're here. Like I said earlier, I don't like to lose if I know I'm going to lose. So what I'm trying to say is, not trying to say, I've already said it twice. If it takes a loss to shake up another government to do something, then the loss is worth it. And that's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
And I'm trying to sort of make a calendar here, but I'm happy to also, I think if we need to have a separate session to approve in a first draft so that we can get the second draft done, I am happy to clear my calendar, and I'm sure that several other members of council will do that. We have all of these lawyers that are sitting in retainer. Let's use them. Whatever it takes to get this on the ballot.
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, as I said, and I explained why I'm going to vote against this, because I think it will hurt more people than it will help. There are a lot of other initiatives that we can do instead that can hurt people, and I hope we'll continue with those. But and I don't mind being 6-1 on it, because philosophically I think it's wrong. But if we're going to do it, the effect of the rent increases is happening right now. And if we wait until March, the solution would not go into effect until after that. And some economists are predicting a recession by then anyway. We need to do something that will help people. Now, even this would go on November ballot. The other thing is that in November, we have a better representation of the voting public. In March, we have very few people coming out to vote. And it needs to be fair to it, it needs to have a larger representation of the public. What I would recommend, Councilmember Goods, is as soon as this passes, like I said, I'm going to vote against it, but it sounds like it will pass. I'm happy to support a follow-up motion to go ahead and schedule the public hearings. And if, as Councilmember Hurtak said, we have to schedule an additional one, okay with that. But we have to get this, if we're going to do this, we have to get it on the November ballot. And the city attorney has already told us that there's a list of, 30 law firms that we can draw from. One of them, I think that's on the list, has 2 former city attorneys. If we started today, we could start to get them rolling on trying to get this in. Again, I'm not in favor of it, but if we're going to do it, I think it needs to be on the November ballot, and we should make the decisions today to schedule to put it on the November ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman Miranda has lived in public housing. I have lived in public housing, so we know what it's like to be poor. This, ladies and gentlemen, is bigger than the city of Tampa. We need Hillsborough County. We need the help of the state of Florida. We had a representative here asking us to do something when Tallahassee themselves preempt us from being able to do these sort of things. Affordable housing. We are preempted by the state of Florida. To Councilman Miranda's point, let's shake up that tree. Let's do some earth shaking. But unless we get the help of Hillsborough County and the state of Florida,
We're working on it.
ladies and gentlemen, right now, I guarantee people in Tallahassee, 20 to each of us, are watching this right now, and they got pen to paper. We're going to stop this. We're going to preempt this. We have a great lawyer team, and it's been proven. We got 5 lawyers here that are on top 100 in the state of Florida, and municipal lawyers. They can fight the fight. We can shake the tree. We've got Rome Yard. We've got properties where the old Army Navy used to be. Affordable workforce housing is coming. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry it's not coming fast enough. The city of Tampa is doing its part. But for now, right here and now, we've been preempted by the state of Florida. I will support this, but I fear of what's going to happen. But let's shake those trees. To Councilman Miranda's point, let's knock some of those acorns off. Roll call vote, please.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson,
No.
Goods,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried with Councilmember Carlson voting no.
Relative to the timing, real quick, I might suggest that you allow the legal department to come forward on August 4th and report to you where we are. Hopefully, we'll have a draft ordinance at that point in time where you could maybe take first reading. If not, then we could consider if we need to schedule special dates in order to meet the deadline. So if that's good.
Mr. Chairman.
Sorry.
Councilman Carlson.
I think we should, we need to take the advice of council, but I would ask that Councilmember Goods schedule this for first and second reading. We need to put it on the agenda, and then I would suggest a second motion to request that if legal is not able to handle it, that they assign us today or tomorrow one of their outsourced legal firms to work with us to get this done.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman, reference to the August 4th date, and also if there is a complication that the legal department get outside counsel to help out with this situation.
May I amend that to the first and second reading? First reading should be August the 4th, and the second reading, what is it? The next council meeting?
18.
as long as we can get things prepared in that fashion, and so that we will try to have a draft to you on the 4th for first reading.
Right.
If there is some delay, then we will talk to you about that and figure out what dates we need to schedule. But I think if we're able to prepare, or we get outside help to prepare, we're looking at the 4th and 18th potentially.
I agree with the council. That's why I'm putting the dates in case we have to do, we can always change the dates. If we don't do it, we'll never get there because the time marches on. You can run fast, but time will always catch you.
All right, then we will be voting on the amended motion by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Roll call vote.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Maniscalco.
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got some business before us, a lot of business today. We are at 12 o'clock. We are going to have a 12:30 hard stop to break. So let's bring the first administrative report up, and I believe that is going to be Ms. Austin. Is that, I'm sorry, Chief, did you want to speak beforehand?
Still good morning. Good morning, council. Good morning, public. John Bennett, Chief of Staff, with Kelly Austin, our HR Director, and Dennis Rogero, the Chief Financial Officer. As stated through the SIRE items that we asked to pull, speaking of getting the job done, today we're here to talk about our 4,800 plus employees as it relates to what typically comes up on a 3-year basis is the union contracts, which represent about 80% of our employees. So trying to understand the intensity of the agenda today, we have a really brief PowerPoint to talk through council and the public to explain kind of the journey that's gone over the last several months, 38 meetings to be exact, and where we are right now with what became 4 tentative agreements and 4 ratifications ahead of the budget planning. And in my 38 years of government, this is the first time I've ever seen it on the front end of the budget, which should help council and the public make more informed decisions going forward on these critical needs, such as housing and the other things that we've talked about. So if we can bring up the PowerPoint, I'll be happy to discuss that.
I would just like to ask a question of legal and also make a statement. Congrats on moving this forward quickly, but my question for legal is, were these programs properly noticed? And the second, and I'm not against the substance of them, but there are hundreds of pages of these things that were not posted until the last few days. Some of them were posted around noon yesterday. And I just think, for the administration's point of view, it's incredibly disrespectful to council and the public to expect council and the public to study documents less than 24 hours before a meeting, especially on large substantive discussions like this. And I would just ask, our requirement is that documents be put in, I think, the Friday before a meeting, but these documents, the summaries anyway, were put in yesterday. And I would ask, did we meet the criteria for notice? And second, ask the administration, why did you do that? And how can we stop that from happening again in the future to not disrespect the public? Thank you.
Legally, it's been properly noticed, and you can move forward with approving the contracts if you desire to do so today. Now, obviously, if you have questions or you need more time for consideration, that's within your discretion. But legally,
And I believe Chief Bennett is going to give us the explanation for that.
I'm happy to. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for your question, Councilor Carlson. We try and be as transparent as possible. The 38 negotiation meetings were publicly noticed through the clerk's office starting on April 26th, all the way till they subsided on June 30th. As soon as everything went to tentative agreement and then goes to ratification, we released those documents that were requested as soon as they were done by those specific unions. The one union that was left to finish their voting concluded after hours, I think almost 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night on Tuesday. And then we made really an addendum to the SIRE items that went into the week earlier. So 3 of the 4 agreements were in SIRE on time, if you will. And it was just the 4th one waiting on the IAFF or the fire department's vote that happened on Tuesday night to bring all the entire package together for council for today.
My last question or comment is that I was not offered an individual briefing on this. The only way I even knew this was coming is because the unions contacted me. I just wonder if my colleagues, were any of you individually briefed on this other than a 30-second briefing in your weekly update?
As time went on over time, I was.
I would just say, this is something that is monumentally important, and the administration had time to send out press releases and talk to the media about this, but not have the respect to talk to city council about it. And I read the documents. I mean, they're very detailed to, how much we're going to pay for ununiformed officers and how much extra we're going to pay for overtime, what we're going to pay for holidays. But we didn't have a chance to go through any of that. And I read it all. I assume my colleagues read it all the hundreds of pages. But I would just ask, on important issues like this where we should be celebrating, why am I getting so many calls from the public asking, when it comes at the last minute, especially yesterday, and yesterday included summaries of the other documents, if it comes at the last minute, it looks like the administration is trying to hide something. So why can't we get it out earlier and notify the public and brief city council? The mayor had a press conference about calling for transparency and accountability, and this is not an example of it. Thank you.
Go ahead, Chief.
No, just briefly.
I'll add my 2 cents later.
Obviously, like you said in the beginning, we were trying to get ahead of the budget cycle. We have to wait for the votes to settle, because if for some reason the contracts don't get ratified, so we were sandwiched between the end of those votes and the budget, which is supposed to go forward next Thursday. So we were doing our best to make sure that you had all the information. We knew the briefings for council were already set up for the week. I specifically got on every one of those calls except for one, and I asked the chief financial officer to stand in for me because we had the agenda review, and was willing to answer any questions about the journey, but we were under a compressed timeline based on the ratification of the vote. It's not hiding anything, it was just the process that it took us to get here.
May I ask, all 3 different groups voted at different times?
That's correct.
And the last one to vote was when?
Tuesday night after hours was, I think, the last vote that we got called from the union, the fire union.
Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Goode.
Before the chief gets into his spiel, I had several calls, and I'm not familiar with this term, our professional employees. And they're all saying that the unions are getting this money, but where do they fit in? So I'm just curious about that with everything going on in the city, housing and that. So, and just so you know, we've had a couple of close friends that work with us, that are city employees, that may be homeless as well, and that those are concerns. So I'm just saying, can you explain what that is and how do they salary fit into this, or where it does not?
Right, that's a great question. So actually, this will come out in the presentation if you'd like, but otherwise I can address it right now. If you'd like. Okay, right. You ready to go to the presentation?
Go for it.
Thank you. Can you bring it up? Dennis, would you hand me that clicker? So this is for council and the public to understand kind of the journey. This is the second agreement that's been negotiated under all of our administrations working together. And I also want to thank council for consistently supporting our employees to the point where you've actually set a day aside to recognize their service to the community. So thank you for that. We'll see if this actually moves. All right, can you change screen for me or move the slide? Okay, so as discussed, the 4 CBAs, collective bargaining agreements, which is consisted of 3 unions, the Amalgamated Transit Union, the International Association of Firefighters, and the Police Benevolent Association. And here we have the union presidents to help speak today, as well as other staff. Our goal that we set was trying to get, again, for the first time I've seen in at least 4 or 5 rounds of this in my career, trying to get everything finalized by the end of June so we would have lead time going into the budget preparations, knowing this would be one of the most challenging budgets that the city's ever entertained for the public with everything going on. So obviously the core teams, the leadership unions were there, the human resources, revenue finance, a lot of credit goes to our budget team and of course our HR, employee relations team. The mayor had asked that all of the administrators sit through these and be part of the journey to make sure that we understood the strains on the employees as well as the inflationary issues. Next slide, please. So this is just a graphic to help understand that we put the employees on the top of our discussion, but at the same time, it was very important that we let the employees understand that with these inflationary items increasing in our level of service, that we had to balance that in addition to making sure we had a strong fund balance. And again, Chief O'Hara is here to talk about that. On the right side of the slide, when we have talked to council about their budget needs over the last several months, what we have heard is public safety through prevention, housing, of course, the crisis that's been discussed today. And actually, I'd like to sidebar for a second and say, this is great that staff and the employees get to sit in here and listen to this public comment that we all hang on every week, because it's important to understand that in context of what we're doing today. We keep hearing about mobility, sidewalks and roads, and we know the offer transportation is working. But the other thing that I've heard throughout the year at least is that some of our core services and our level of service within our FTEs needs to increase based on the increased demand on the city in certain areas. And staff is bringing all of those requests to the budget office, and you'll hear about that next week. Next slide, please. Just a breakdown of what we were talking about, and Councilman Goose, this kind of goes towards your question. The city has over 4,800 employees. 44% of those are in the ATU, 16% are on the fire department, and in the police department holds 20%, which goes up to the rank of lieutenant. So basically, 80% of our employees are eligible to be inside those three unions. In addition, if you remember last negotiation, there was a break off of the public safety employees to go into the healthcare trust. So 36% of them have their own healthcare system. 64% we guard against increases in healthcare based on those demographics, and we've made sure that we've guarded that throughout the last 3 years. Next slide, please. The one thing that is not lost on us is that over 5,000 of our employees assembled in those four areas have gone through some sort of COVID crisis during the last two years that we've measured. And so it's very important to understand that they found a way to get the job done, lean on each other when other ones were out of the office, and get the work accomplished. And so, again, where the union ceiling stops at 80%, those employees above that are part of the budget process that will come to you for those increases, because we also have to guard against what's called compression between the union positions and management and other leadership positions. And so all of that will be scaled based on those positions coming forward, and that'll be presented as part of the budget process next week. Next slide. So here's a breakdown of the three memberships, the ATU, the IFF, and the PBA. And I just wanted to show where the ATU positions land. Earlier, you heard Councilman Miranda talk about that we have an enterprise fund which pays for those employees in the utilities. And we have a general fund that tends to be more related to public safety, code enforcement, parks and rec. And so here you can see where the percentages of employees vary in between those unions. Of course, fire and police are dedicated there. But I want to point out the bottom of the ATU, about 1,500 of those 2,000 employees have to come to work, meaning there's no teleworking. They have to go out and work the water lines, the sewer lines. They have to pick up solid waste. So we want to make sure that, during that, that's why I put the COVID slide in there, to show the impact that happened on these employees over the last couple of years. They either have to be in the field or they have to be in a facility. And our public safety personnel are exactly the same way. So there's some statistics up there. I won't go into great detail, but you can see that the fire department's handling a call about every 5 minutes, and the police department's handling a call about every minute somewhere in the city. So we have a really busy city, and we have a lot of dedicated employees that get the job done every day. Next slide. So you'll hear later, if need be, the last 22 years, the city has done a great job of keeping on par with inflation for our employees. And I have heard the same stories about some of our employees having to sleep in their car. Matter of fact, Gene Duncan and I met with some of our nonprofit providers to see what they can do inside the city to help support. And as you know, the mayor has led the charge on increasing minimum wage 3 years ago to $15 an hour, not waiting for the state to get it, which is now still a couple of years away. So those employers are now be making upward of $20 an hour, which is great. We saw a departure on inflation actually 18 months ago. So the last contract provided a 3, 3, and 3% to public safety, and the mayor wanted to give 3.5% in the last one, the last year, to the ATU, because it was an offset for a negotiation prior to that. So the ATU actually got a 3.5% increase. But either one of those groups, there was already an inflation departure 18 months ago based on their cost of living analysis. So this year it was designed to close the gap in year one and then come up with a way in year 2 and 3 to try and work against what the inflation projections look like to the best of our ability, and that's where we are now. Last slide. This slide shows a comparison on the left to the comparison on the right. It's probably the most important slide. So when the unions come in, we listen, and that's part of those 38 meetings that we did in the sunshine, is to listen to those 3,900 employees through their leadership models to ask about the benefits, pay, and equipment that they need to get the job done. So those meetings happened. HR set all those up. They were typically 90-minute meetings stacked on top of each other to try and get to that June 30th planning cycle to bring it forward to council ahead of the budget process, because we knew it would be a challenging year. So on the left side, you can see that was the request over the 3-year period. We had worked with the union. We explained the challenges of housing, mobility, FTE increases, and the unions worked with us. They worked with the mayor. They understood that we had to strike a balance on this. And so there was really a dramatic correction or an adjustment between the left side and the right side. And I can tell you, as you water it down and you look at it, we're looking about, in the other costs, not the wages, about $3 a day over the period for the ATU, a little under $9 a day for fire. But I will tell you that inside that, there's a second set of bunker gear to help protect them from certain things that go on in the fire service. And then lastly, law enforcement is under $6 a day across the board on other costed items other than wages. So essentially, we're here today to ask you to adopt these 4 agreements. I will say that we're always in a continuing learning about community engagement and public awareness. We followed the same process that I've seen over the last 4 or 5 contracts. I do understand that the dynamics of this one are unique because of the inflation and, of course, the crises we're facing. But really, our ultimate goal was to get this settled, to get it in front of you before the budget so you can make an informed decision going into fiscal years 23, 24, and 25. So I'll rest there, but I do think that the 3 union presidents would like to say something.
Can I have Councilman Maniscalco? Can we ask questions first, please? Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you, Chief Bennett. Wonderful presentation. You know, if I have any questions, I call Darla. If I have any concerns, Stephen Simon is the first to call me, usually. And if I have anything else with the fire department, Andrew Carter, my friend of 22 years, is always responsive. We have been talking about inflation. We've been talking about housing affordability. We've been talking about groceries being more expensive, the rising cost of gas. We want to help everybody in the city of Tampa, whether they work for the city or they don't work for everybody. We're a big family. That's how I look at it. We have thousands of employees at the ATU, with the firefighters, with the police union, that work very, very hard, that are facing, like everybody is, the rising cost of living, as I've already explained. It's affecting everybody across the board. Our job, as we approved and look at and analyze and put together the city budget, is to take care of our employees. We want to hire the best and the brightest, which I think we do have the best and the brightest. Those people deserve to be paid a good wage to help combat the rising cost of everything. Those people give blood, sweat, tears, sacrifice to the city. ATU says we keep the city running. 2,123 eligible members. That's a lot of people. That's an army of people that are out there serving the community. The police department, the fire department. They deserve this. Everybody. We want to, as we say, a rising tide lifts all boats. We are trying to offer folks a better life for the work and sacrifice that they make here. If I have any questions, I call. I spoke personally to Mr. Simon. I speak to Mr. Carter all the time. Mrs. Portman. Any questions I have, they're there. I don't think this was mishandled. I think it was properly done. I think these individuals do deserve this increase because, again, the cost of living is it's affecting everybody. And we need to take care of the city of Tampa family that work very, very hard. So I'm ready to support this after questions or whatnot, but let's move forward on it. Thank you.
Councilman Carlson.
Yes, and I agree with that as well. 3 months ago, at my own company, I gave it across the board inflation adjustment also on top of the merit increases. So everybody's eligible for merit increases, but we took the rate of inflation at that time and we gave everybody an across the board increase. And it costs money to do that. But you have to if you want to keep the best and brightest people. And I know that's the goal of everybody here. We want our best people to stay. And I know from talking to employment attorneys and others in the region that other cities around are raising their rates too. We just hired 2 really good people from Lakeland, and they're probably going to be backfilling with somebody raising rates to make sure they get somebody great in replacement. My question is, so first of all, I think from a competitiveness point of view, some people have come before us and they've criticized certain members of staff, but if we want to keep their really good ones, we've got to make sure we stay competitive on pricing. And then we need to make sure we have the processes to weed out the very few bad ones. But we need to make sure we have competitive pricing. The second thing is it's just a fair thing to do. We know now inflation is 9.1%. And so you say 9.5, catching up with the difference from last year. That's completely understandable. And just for the public to understand, if you don't raise rates by 9%, that means that cost is passed on to the employee. The employee is spending 9% more than they were a year ago just because prices have gone up. And we know that because of the ad valorem taxes, our tax rolls are going up, and we need to be fair to our people. And I know there have been times over the years where our people haven't been able to get increases. I know the 3 union representatives are going to make some statements, but I would just like to ask them, Chief Bennett just presented that, among other things, that the city has kept up with inflation over the years. But I tend to remember, like back during the Great Recession, that there were some cuts. And I wonder, these are negotiated agreements, so I'm not trying to undo anything. I just, in looking to the future, does this keep us competitive, or do we still have a lot of catching up to do as we go back the next time, and catching up from cuts that we had to make in the past, and then also considering what our competitive cities are doing? Maybe the chief can answer, but I wonder if the unions. I just want the unions to be able to say, yeah, we're going to be able to keep our best and brightest, or no, we still have to work on it.
No, I think you hit it right on the head. We are trying to keep the best and the brightest. Every Wednesday, I meet with HR and we talk about employee scenarios. And you may have seen through some of the communications that we're trying to work towards hybrid teleworking to be efficient and keep up with the competition out there for teleworking in those positions that we can, which is why I was trying to highlight the 1,500 that really have to be in the field or in a facility. But we did look at it from where we are in the market today, where the inflation is going, and where historically we lost a little ground over the last 18 months. And that is to keep the best and the brightest here. So I think, and I won't speak for them, they can answer, but one of the first exercises we did was to look backwards over 22 years and see how close we were on the cost of living compared to where we are now, and then look at the delta between, or the gap between where we are and where it was going. And understanding that in the last 20-something years, credited to Chief Rojero's office, there's only been one small deflationary period. So the dollar really never retreats. It just, only on occasion, the dollar will go down. Now, some of the commodities will lower, but overall, inflation moves in one direction and then it holds. So we're trying to guard against that, which is, and the union also, I think this is worth noting, was really interested in getting a 3-year contract. So we didn't come back in 2 and 3, and that's why we lowered it beyond 50% in the out years, but left room to come back with council's guidance and the public's guidance to work through that if inflation doesn't take care of itself.
So the quick question for the union representatives, and again, not to open up the box, but do you feel confident that this does help us catch up and that it will make us competitive over the next 3 years?
Yes, how you doing? Steve Simon, president of ATU Local 1464. We're extremely happy that we were able to come to this agreement, because it does also give us a sense of security in moving forward. So, showing the appreciation, for all of that we've done in keeping the city of Tampa running all throughout the pandemic. We really are appreciative. We see that we've been seen and the appreciation has been shown for us. And so with that sense of security, it just makes us want to stay and continue doing what we do.
Are you finished?
Mr. Chair?
I'm asking the other two maybe too.
Okay.
Okay. Darla Portman, President of the Tampa PBA. To answer your question, Councilman Carlson, I was one of those officers that were affected in 2009, missing my step, not getting a raise. The city has done substantially better in the last few years and the last few contracts of trying to make us whole again. I think this is a step in the right direction, and I think every other contract that we have after this will just make us be able to retain the officers that are good and experienced, and also get the ones that we really want, the brightest and the best. So to answer your question, yes, I think we're going in the right direction.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Andrew Carter, President, Tampa Firefighters Local 754. I just prepared a very small statement I'd like to read to you. First, I'd like to thank all the individuals that worked very hard and helped us reach this agreement. From our negotiation team, our fire admin, human resources, the mayor's office, chief of staff, budget and finance, benefits, and many more. For the first time in my career, we've had these negotiation sessions completed ahead of the expiration of our current agreement. That offers a lot of security for both the employee and the city, because a portion of that budget has already been completed and finalized. In past administrations, this would probably be November to January. So after the budget's already been approved, we might be coming back for budget amendments or revisions. That's not the case with this contract. Over the last few months, we've reached an agreement that really shows us employees just how valued we are in this city. This 3-year contract will help solidify financial concerns of the workforce during these unprecedented times. This agreement will allow us to attract and retain the best employees in the state, help us continue to respond for every call for service. Just so you know, I've already been fielding phone calls from Orlando, Hernando, Sarasota, and more, asking when we're hiring. And I'm happy to tell them that applications are open until the end of August. So thank you again, and thank you for your time and consideration.
And if I may, before I go to Councilman Goods, Councilman Carlson, you talk about competitive. There are other firefighters, Pinellas, Polk, Pasco, that want to come to Tampa. There are other police officers, Pinellas, Polk, Pasco, that want to come to Tampa to work. There are other ATU people that want to come from surrounding areas that want to come here. We are highly competitive as far as employment in our city. With that said, Councilman Goods.
Yeah, I'm not too much worried about the unions because I know how they operate. My concern, because I receive calls, is about this professional setting. So that's what I want to know about. Are they getting raises? How does that work? Because I don't want them to come back and say, the unions got all the money, and yet we didn't get anything. And I just want to make sure we got a balance of how they work and what is that in those categories. That's what I'm looking at.
Sure. And I'll just say it in a global sense that the budget's being presented next week, and that tier of employees that are outside the union, which really measure up to about 1,000, will have their raises brought in through that budget process because it's different than the union. But I'll let Chief O'Hara talk about how that gets stratified among those different positions.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Council. Dennis O'Hara, Chief Financial Officer. I appreciate that question because I'm one of those professionals. But, you know, we like to think they're working just as hard in keeping this city running, contributing to the value. But as the chief said, you know, when the mayor presents her budget next week, if council approves this action today, as you heard the fire union president say, we'll incorporate that section will be before council to re-review, but we'll pretty much have that wrapped up. And then as part of our presentation Thursday, we'll share with you the various pay raises for the non-bargaining unit employees.
And there's about 3 different categories, I'm understanding?
Yes, sir. You'll have the professionals, you'll have the supervisors, and you'll have the managers, and actually there's 4, and the unclassifieds, and we'll share that as part of the presentation.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Miranda, did you want to add anything?
No, I just listen and learn every day. And sometimes I amuse myself by learning too much. But what I hear is something that really what your essence, what the contract really at the end of the day, when you look at it, is really rectifying what happened in the cost of living during the term of the last contract, that you're bringing it up to in essence what you were what the last contract was with different numbers, because those numbers in the old contract changed by 9-point-some%. So I appreciate, thank you, all of you, all three of you. Thank all the union members and the non-union members for understanding what all this is about. It's about keeping the city clean. And yet, when I say that, not to rattle anybody's mind, you're driving down the street and you still see people that are mowing the grass, putting it inside the sewers. And we have to stop those people from doing that in one way or another. And I'm not trying to be difficult or any way saying something derogatory, I'm just trying to say the facts. We see that, the citizens see that, and everything somebody sees that's like a little baby. Everybody duplicates it. So you have to understand that the little things is what makes a city big, not a big thing making the little ones known. So they start small, but they get large. And we appreciate your Mr. Chief of Staff and the administration, Mr. Rojero, and all of you for working together for a long period of time to make sure that the city's protected, that the citizens are protected to the best of the ability of all the employees. And by the way, I think 4,800 employees, like you said, is about the same staffing amount that we had back in 2008, if I recall. So we're back to speed now, and things should get better and quicker service. But every time you say quicker service, the service amounts and calls for every 5 minutes, every minute. So it's very difficult, the jobs you do 24/7, 365, and we all appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
I just want to say congratulations to the union, to all 4 unions. As a former union member myself and a rep for the school when I was a teacher, we were incredibly blessed because the superintendent of schools up in Alachua County when I was a teacher was a former union president of the teachers union. So we had this magical relationship that even, especially for Florida, was very unusual. And it sounds like you all have, with this administration, a similar relationship. They're respecting what union members and what all workers bring to the table. But I'm particularly proud, I'm always proud to be a former union member, but I'm particularly proud of all 3 unions and how we're able to keep their pay staying up with inflation, staying up with making sure that we do keep our people. That is one of the best parts of any type of city or government employment, is that oftentimes we're told, you don't make the most money, but you have great retirement, you have great benefits. But it's nice to know that we're not just looking at okay salaries, that we're looking at competitive salaries that keep people here, that keep the best people here, that bring in more good people. And that is exactly what this city needs. And so I want to say congratulations for such a phenomenal contract. And I feel like the city gets its money's worth. And I'm really happy that this contract is done before the budget so that we have that piece settled. So thank you to all parties involved. And I'm incredibly happy for the unions especially.
Councilman Vieira.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much, Mr. Yes, sir. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much. No, just congratulations to ATU PBA 754 for this and whatnot. I'm proud to support this. The work that y'all do every single day on the job is something we all appreciate, and it all goes to many different parts of keeping our city running, keeping us clean, keeping us safe, keeping us orderly, et cetera. I do have a question for Chief Bennett, just out of interest. What is the starting salary of a Tampa police officer?
Kelly, do you have that?
If you know, anybody.
Yeah, it's right in the range of $60,000 a year. We
Okay.
did a quick market review of the starting salaries of all the positions that we could locate as a jumping off point against inflation. So it was right in the 60,000. I don't have the exact number though.
And because one thing that you all said correctly in your presentation, and everybody, it's open and obvious, is with inflation being what it is in terms of purchasing power, we're keeping up with inflation here. So, because we got a lot of emails, especially directed to Tampa Police Department, on saying that there was an 18% pay increase that was coming. Number one, that's over 3 years. Number two, it's keeping up with inflation. And, I come from the mindset where when it comes to our police officers, I want to attract the best and the brightest, and I want to pay them well. Not just to attract the best and the brightest, but as a thank you for the work that they do on the job every single day, putting themselves in danger, et cetera, et cetera. Just a sentiment I wanted to express in that regard in my COVID foggy haze. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chief Bennett, anything else?
I just want to conclude with two comments, and I think they support Councilman Good's comments earlier. About a year ago, when we were up for one of the raise opportunities in October after the budget passed, senior staff elected not to take a raise because of all of the things that were happening on with COVID. And we stood back, and then when we got the infusion of the federal dollars, we waited till all of that settled, and we were able to put that money towards housing and other things that were community facing. And that just shows you that this leadership team in the city is going to put the front lines first before we even consider ourselves. So, I think that's a testimony. The other thing is the union stepped up under the COVID crisis, and they were willing to do things to make sure that they stayed safe to serve the community. While other jurisdictions were paying people to do that, our unions didn't take a cent to do the right thing under the COVID conditions to keep working forward. That also left that money in the pot for the community as opposed to taking it as individuals. So my hat's off to those 3,800 employees that worked with us, opened the contract, and allowed an amendment to keep COVID out of the city as much as possible to keep the city running. So thank you, that's all.
Unions. Are your members happy with this agreement?
Yes.
I'm seeing that. Even our clerk is saying yes. Because the citizens of Tampa want and need the basics. They want their trash picked up. They want their waste, solid and liquid, taken away. They want to feel safe with fire and police.
Yes.
You keep the employees happy, you're going to have a happy city. Councilman Miranda, would you prefer to move these during consent?
Yes, sir. If
48, 49, and 50.
if you allow me to do that, I move,
Well, let's wait until consent when we come back. Is that all right with you?
fine with me, sir.
Fantastic. Thank you all very, very much. We are in
Mr.
Yeah, the IAF is not on consent.
Oh, the IF is not on
Yeah,
consent? Would you like to move that one then, please, Councilman Miranda?
Is that 48, 49? Which one is that one?
Mr. Chairman,
It's a walk-on item.
if I could suggest maybe all four get moved
The
now while the
IAF,
presidents are here.
Okay, go ahead.
I think we ought to move all
Yeah.
four if you're going to do
Yeah,
one.
can I legally move all four at once? Which is two in the
Second.
police
Second.
department and the one firefighters in the,
Yeah, you can move the three items, and there's one that, I think the firefighters is the walk-on item that will have to be done in this.
I believe the firefighters item was, walk-on, but, all right, I'll move the three items, which is, file number E 2022-48. No, excuse me, that's the Himes and Columbus Drive naming for someone else.
48 should be collective bargaining agreement, right? 48?
48, 49, and 50. Which is 22, 761-46, 761-48, and 761-45.
They all have the same file.
And then the
They all
walk
have the same.
It's on the agenda. He's correct. Right here. He got it right.
Yeah, but these,
It's very complicated when you look at these things, but, and the other one, the walk-on was, I believe, E 2022-48.
Yes, there we go. Motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Roll call vote.
Vieira,
Yes.
Maniscalco. Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Citro.
Yes,
Motion carried unanimously.
congratulations.
Thank you, Councilman.
We are adjourned until 2 o'clock. Recessed until 2 o'clock.